Good evening, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Thanks for joining us here tonight. We're just making sure that sound and everything is working properly. How's everyone doing? Thanks so much for coming. We've been trying to get this stream going for a while now, but I've just been like so busy and everything. But yeah, we're finally here tonight. We got some of the team here. I'm just gonna basically get them in on this. Hold on, bear with. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hopefully you can see the whole team there. I mean, I have no visibility on stream at the minute, but yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is.
I think there's like I don't know, it's like a minute delay.
Hello.
Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? I'm sure, go on, I'll let you guys go.
Sure. Top to bottom.
Yeah, top to bottom will do. Yeah.
I always forget that my name starts with 1, so I always end up at the top of the alphabetical list. Hello, everyone. I'm 1UpD. I'm one of the programmers for Entropy 02 and one of the developers on the team here.
I'm Blixspawn. I'm the other programmer. I also do level design and help out generally just all around. I made map base as well.
I'm Breadman, you know who I am.
I'm Spencer Baggett. I did the music for Entropy 02.
Hello, I'm Trivy. I'm the voice of Bad Cop and also a lighting artist for Entropy 02.
Yeah. So we're missing some members tonight, but I think the plan is we'll probably end up doing another stream at some point with some more of the guys. But yeah, here we all are. Thanks for coming, guys. Before we start, I've got a form to hand out from Blix, which I think some of you may have already seen somehow. We're a bit perplexed as to how it managed to leak, but I'm just going to... Go on, Blix, I'll let you explain.
This is a survey that's kind of formatted in a similar way to what we used during playtesting. Yeah, like we sent a questionnaire to certain playtesters for like more granular feedback. And I figured that we could probably benefit from something like that, or at least just from people, since like it's been hard to get really granular and like pointed feedback with just like reviews and stuff. And I figured that Retrospective would be a good opportunity to just ask some questions about like people's feelings about the game, what was memorable to them, so it's like a retrospective not just for us but also for everyone else, players and viewers and stuff.
Yeah, I think I think you've summarized that really well. I've just put the link to the survey in the chat, so please go and grab it and fill that out for us. That'd be great. I think there's, like you were saying, Blix, sometimes reviews can be really like, even though they're positive, they can be non-constructive because
right.
Some people say, hey, I really love the game, and that's great, but that's not constructive. It's kind of the same thing when you get a negative review and somebody just says, oh yeah, it sucks. It's like, well, that's great, you didn't like it, but you didn't actually tell us like what we did wrong or whatever.
It's hard to extrapolate something we could use. A
review isn't always supposed to be detailed feedback. A review is mostly saying, would you recommend other people play this or not? So sometimes it's good to drill down more into the specifics of what worked best and what didn't work as well. By the way, chat, real quick, does the audio sound okay in this stream? When it first started out on my playback, there's like a little bit of a crackling sound. Does everything sound okay?
Yeah, we want to make sure that's okay.
I forget there's like a several seconds, maybe minute delay, so my question won't get out there for a while.
Fine.
Okay, it might just be me then, so that's totally fine.
That's cool. So I kind of jumped the gun there on our schedule, but I wanted to get that form out there because I'm excited to see the responses to that, and I think Blix, you've done a great job on that, so I can't wait to see what we get back from that.
Thanks.
We're going to talk a little bit about something exciting, but we're going to talk about that sort of towards the end of the stream. I think what would be great is if we can sort of just get going with our retrospective now. So what I have here from courtesy of Max Brando, who isn't actually here. I thought he was going to be part of the stream because he was kicking around earlier. I have one of the first ever screenshots of Entropy 02, which was shared on Mod Database back in August 2018, which is just like crazy. And when I look at this screenshot, I'm noticing so many things like that are different now. Like, for example, the caption text is like a completely different color. The HUD's got a different font. Like, I mean, just that whole map looks completely like...
Hey, just real quick, someone's saying that you should probably pin the survey that you posted in the chat so it's seen throughout the stream.
Oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you just scroll up to the message, click on the three dots, and there should... Yeah,
there we go.
All
sorted.
right.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, sorry, continue.
No, that's fine. I was...
Yeah, thanks, Oopsie Daisy. It's the name, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I was just like looking at this screenshot and realizing like that was like the early days. That was back when the pulse pistol was just like a reskinned USP, and it had like the little two red dots on it. But it just amazes me at like how different that scene looks to the game today, because that didn't have like the the parallax cube map splits that you brought along.
Oh, right.
That was before that, like way before.
Yeah, and also and the particle rain and stuff. Yeah,
it was before the particle rain. That's literally just the old funk precipitation going on there.
Yep.
Now, was this before when you did the announcement video, or was this at the same time of the announcement video?
Oh, that's a really good question, because let me see. If I go to Mod Database, I can actually find out. I reckon it might have been before. Or either that or be part of the same thing. Let me just literally speed to the article. Here we go. August 3rd, 2018, that was. Yeah, this was before the video. So this is like literally one of the first screenshots I did. That's crazy. Oh, let me see if I can throw this one up. Hang on, because this has got a... this picture here has a picture of the old USP, and I'll like never forget it, because... Hang on, bear with me. The old USP.
If I take questions from the chat as we go through,
yeah,
I know we have a dedicated.
Fine. I mean,
we have a dedicated Q&A that we're going to have later, but I think as stuff comes up, I want to answer. If it's a question that I think I have a good answer for.
Yeah, go for it.
White Lightning Twister Dragon asks, when did you swap over the improved hammer functions with map base? I think that means when did we switch over to using map base?
It was before map base released.
Yeah, we got it first.
Was it really?
Yeah, Easy 2 was like the test run for map base. Like, it was a few months before it released, and map base released in September 2019, I think. So it was like at some point just a few months prior to that.
I wanted to say it was in 2020, but my memory is like skewed now, because we put in a lot of work to switching it over. Absolutely well worth it. I mean, it changed the game and gave us so many new tools. So we're very glad that we did that. But yeah, that was a big effort, I guess, back in 2019. Wow, that was a while ago now.
Yeah. It's
pretty weird.
Scary.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, like, those are your map plans. I'm just going to put some old screenshots up on the screen for a bit whilst we just talk about this. Like, I remember my anxiety about that, because we were like, we were just getting, I think, our feet off the ground with the mapping, and then we were like, right, we're going to change it, or we're going to get map base involved. And I seem to remember us being like, we have to tread really, really carefully in case anything breaks and blows up.
Right.
I'll never forget that. But like One Up D said, I think it was amazing that we did it. I'm so glad that we did. I think one of my favourite things from map base that we got is the projected textures. I just love those projected textures.
Right.
Redman, I think you might have inadvertently answered the next question from the same person asking, which was, what was the most mind-boggling upgrade from map base.
Yeah, go on, Ollie. I mean,
But
for me, it was.
It's
the projected-
interesting because like the projected textures to me are not like the most map-based thing about map base. Like it
Right.
offers so many tools for mappers to use that change the way that you think about laying out your maps, as far as like new entities and stuff. But the projected textures are definitely like the most visible change. Like they allow you to do things with lighting that you couldn't do before. So it's like that's really front and center with map base, even though that's not like the most map base-esque
Oh,
feature.
absolutely. I mean, the logical things that you can do in map base are amazing as well. I just think as what I'm like visually, I'm a visual designer, so I just love, like in that screenshot that's on the screen right now, is like how we were able to use projected textures, and I put them everywhere. I kind of overdid it with the projected textures. Do you know what I'd love to see just on that? I really would love to see cascade shadow maps in map base. Like it would be so good.
There's been a lot of like community implementations of it over the years, but they usually like have some sort of like usually the cons outweigh the benefits, and usually it involves like a custom VRAD that you have to use. So
custom VRAD.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to like put it on the table, but I mean,
that's really that's really interesting because it's a shadow map. I wouldn't have thought it would need VRAD. Like how the projected textures.
Well, I mean, CSM in terms of like sunlight coming from the sky, like it basically replaces light environment in a lot of ways. So that's why it needs a custom VRAD.
Right, that's super interesting. Maybe something we can talk about. Yeah.
Anyway. I did want to say that one thing that I think is like also an important thing about map-based in Entropy 02 is the changes it makes to NPCs and their animations.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to like dwell on this because we should probably move on, but
that's all right.
That's okay.
We're chill.
For example, citizens, and rebels and stuff, they don't flinch in Half-Life 2, but map-base adds a Metrocop flinches to them, and I think that's actually pretty important for EZ too. Even though citizens die pretty quickly, they actually flinch, which like they wouldn't have before in like EZ1 or any other context. And another thing that map-base adds, actually in just the like version 7 update, which is like right around the end of development, is readiness animations for soldiers. And if you've noticed, like Combine soldiers like use different like idle or aiming animations whenever they're alert, that's what I'm talking about. It's like the same kind of thing that citizens use, and I'm really proud of those.
I think it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, there are so many like the rebels flinching, for example. There are so many little things that we did. Like, I didn't even remember that rebels don't flinch in Half-Life 2.
It's ironic,
and it's like.
It feels very different in game, even though when you describe it, it doesn't sound like a big difference. But like it's something that is it has almost a tactile sense to it. Like when you're playing the game, you'll notice it's like, something's different here.
Well, it's like
it's ironic.
It's the cause and effect, isn't it? It's the player cause and effect. That lesson that we learned about. It's like cause and effect on a macroscopic scale. The player does something and you get that feedback. I think it's just it's like such a small thing that just enhances the combat feedback so much.
Yeah, it's ironic too because like citizens are like the one NPC that's like human in Half-Life 2, and they're also the ones that don't actually flinch in response to pain. While Combine soldiers and Metrocops do. Yeah.
Because like you want the player to see like flinch reactions from enemies, to show feedback for your reactions. It doesn't really matter if the enemy NPCs get, hit feedback from the allies. There's a one-sidedness about that.
Right.
I see 4 really good questions at least in the chat, and I'm now regretting opening up questions for dedicated Q&A. Should I continue answering the questions, or do we want to move on with the current topic?
Should we do those 4? I think Blix, you want to say something as well. Sorry.
No, I don't want to. I think that maybe we should move on because we will have a dedicated Q&A already. So we could just say everyone who's asking questions could save their questions for the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I am seeing some really good questions in the chat, so be sure to hold your questions. So when we have the Q&A, you can repost them because I'd love to answer all your questions.
Yeah, that's cool. So, quickly, I'll just quickly explain how Entropy 02 got started, because that's on our agenda. I feel like I've told this story 100 times, but so I'll make it really, really quick. It was 2017, I just released Easy 1, and I was being woken up at 4 a.m. by Russians texting me and messaging me on Facebook asking me if there was going to be a sequel to Entropy 0. And I got so fucking fed up of being woken up every night by people on Facebook messaging me that sort of it must have been January 2018. I sat down and I thought, well, if I was going to do an Entropy 02, what would it look like? And I started writing, and then I got really sick, nearly died, and then didn't do anything with it, basically, because I couldn't, because I was basically bedridden for 6 months. And it was in that time that I formulated most of the plot, I think, that we ran with when we went to development. And I kicked off development proper. I think it must have been in, if I look at the mod database article, that'll tell me. August. Yeah, of course, August 2018.
So Easy 2 all came out of a fever dream.
It did, yeah. A salmonella-induced fever dream. So you can thank the chicken for that.
That explains everything about Easy 2, doesn't it?
It does. But yeah, so that's how I got started. I thought I'd just mention it because when people DM me and stuff, they always ask me that question, so I thought it'd be good to get that out there. There wasn't like a mysterious thing about it or anything. And the reason why people ask me is because a long time ago, when I finished Entropy 01, I think in the community forums, I was like, I'm not doing an Entropy 02, it's not happening. Because I was like getting carried away with Unity at the time. But yeah. So that's how it all began. I think the other thing is, so I've got this on our agenda as well, and it's something that I've come to realise sort of only recently, but I haven't really spoken with you guys about this, and I just wondered if you would agree. When you look at Entropy 02's production as a whole, which I know is really hard to do, at least it's hard for me to do because it's like 5 years of work, I think we kind of did it. It was almost like iterative peer review. Does that make sense? But we did that constantly, like every single week. I was making maps, and you guys were making maps, and then we would play it weekly. You guys would be like, "Hey, this is good, and this sucks," and then we would like trim the trim the crap.
Especially the second one.
Especially,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
when you put it like that, it's so strange to me because I don't feel like that was a flow that we had codified as like, okay, guys, we're going to do weekly reviews.
No.
It's not like we had that. We did later on in development, like when we were doing our beta improvements, we tried to come up with like an agile workflow. But early on, we didn't really like write down, okay, here was how we're going to lay out our reviews. We'll deliver by this date. No, it was casual. It was just like you were working on the game and we all wanted to play it. So it's like you'd make something and be like, hey guys, I made this map, check it out. And then we'd all jump on it and play the map and be like, wow, this is amazing. And wow, this sucks. This should be like this, So it was really like driven by our desire to play the game. And the weekly sort of review format just emerged by itself organically.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why it was so successful.
And we did that for years. I think we only came off that sort of process. We only stopped doing that when we'd reached the last chapter. And then we were deciding, we did chapter 0, and then we kind of we did some retrospective stuff, and then we did all the testing and stuff. That was like really when development shifted, But we did that for years, that weekly testing thing. I don't know how we did it. It must have been about 3 years straight of just mapping every day and testing at the weekends. Insane when I think back on it. Crazy.
Just looking at Clone Cop lying in the Peter Griffin pose.
Yeah. I love that screenshot. I've actually got some...
I forgot about this iteration of the boss fight, This is like memories here.
Yeah.
The boss fight was so different to what we have now.
In regards to how Easy 2 got started, Stashy says, I knew the chickens were involved.
Yeah, those bastards.
I don't know if you actually told us that story before now.
Really? Did I not tell you guys that I like...
I don't think so.
I don't recall salmonella ever being a thing.
Really?
Because he knew that none of us would want to get involved if he came up to us and like, so guys, I had this idea when I was on Salmonella, I had this fever
When I was on
Yeah.
Salmonella, like I'm like microdosing Salmonella.
It might be contagious. We don't want to. We don't want a contaminated game.
No, it was like I don't want to get grisly here, but it was terrible. I had like stomach ulcers. I couldn't eat.
Oh,
I
no.
was, like, it was so bad. Like honestly, so bad, and the pain was like, yeah. Anyway, but no, I just, funnily enough, just Trivy speaking there just reminded me of like when I first met Trivy. I'd literally gotten out of bed for the first day in like 4 weeks, and I sat down in my dressing gown, and there's this guy on Steam. He's like, hey, I can do these combined voices for you. I don't know if you remember Trivy, but it was right there, like on that, within like 15 minutes of speaking to you, that we were like, yeah, you're bad cop. Like you're just gonna be bad
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a
How
shame
did
that
you-
Steam doesn't like keep like logs and stuff of chats, because that would be a really interesting one to like pull out.
cop. Oh, I wish.
But
it
yeah, I
did.
remember that just on Steam chat, like on out of the blue, just was like, hey, I really like Entropy Zero. If you need a voice actor.
And the other thing is,
How did you
like,
guys decide that within 15 minutes?
well, Trivy sent me some samples, and I was like, because I was like on the fence then. I was like, okay, because I'd had samples from other folks in the community at that time, and I was like, do I really want to go down the route of like, if it's voice acted, then we can expand on the writing and we can do proper dialogue and stuff like that. I was kind of on the fence. Then Trivy came along. He was like, yeah, look, it's totally possible. It can sound just like Half-Life 2. I think you did some lines for me. And I don't know, you kind of talked me into it, if I'm honest, Trivy. So really, Entropy 02 is your fault. The way it like turned out, with Bad Cop talking at least, that was definitely mostly your doing, which was cool. Just so everyone knows, I've got some hammer shots on the screen. These are like really old, so you can see, and there's some like map. Oh, there's a map plan in there as well, a drawn map plan, which should be in the detailed map plans slideshow, which I'll show in a minute. I tell you, that actually reminds me. We didn't really do any like concept art, did we? For Entropy 02. We didn't really do any like art stuff.
Not really.
Well, I think you showed us earlier some of your not concept. What would you call that? Yeah, some of it was concept art. Some of it was level plans that are very professional.
Oh, I can put them up if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you gotta share those because that was fantastic.
So there's a very grounded, and that one actually looks quite serious. But we really used these, even though that they were just hastily drawn in paint. There you go. There's C63. There it is. So like we actually used that. Like I'm being deadly serious. That's like, it just makes us look so unprofessional. But that is literally, I had that on my second screen when I was building C63.
Like, it only needs to be as detailed as you need to help you. So
Yeah,
even if it
absolutely.
looks silly, it's like it's not silly because it's all the information you needed. So anything more, you didn't make that to show it off. You made it as a a tool, a reference for you to use.
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't want to answer questions in chat because there's a lot of them and they all look really good. But there's one question that caught my eye that I want to answer right off the bat because it's short. Bruner asks, was the guy in the orange jacket with Mossman Chester? Yeah, that was Chester.
Yeah. Oh, look at that one. That one's not even named. Sorry, I'm looking at the map plans. I have not. That must have been C. That's got to be C2 too. I mean, that's how much that one helped me. I think a lot. The thing is with Entropy 02.
Wait, why is there a drawing for C23?
Was that C2?
It's like a different C23.
Oh no, it's C. Yeah.
That must have been like for chapter 3 before it was turned into its own chapter.
Was that
Yeah.
C31?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because do you remember? Because chapter 3 that never used to exist. That used to literally be a map at the end of chapter 2. That we were going to do the whole thing in one map at the end of chapter 2, and then it would go into chapter 3. Because we were crazy.
Yeah, there's a little bit of trivia for you, audience. Yeah, chapter 3 didn't used to be a thing. It used to be just one map.
We were like, Bad Cop's going to end up in the basement, and then CW had this. I wish CW was here because he had this great idea for it with the turrets. We were going to have the projected textures, like as the turrets lighting up the chambers and stuff, and then we would have like the Gnome, the beast that we called it for ages, chasing us around. And the plan was that was going to be one map somehow, and then you're going to be back outside for chapter 3, which is now chapter 4, if that makes sense. Man, like the whole GoGnome thing, there's so many like rabbit holes in this like development process that we could go
It's
down.
weird now for me to think, like, how did we ever think that could be one map?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it would have to be so condensed, especially because like the maps in Easy 2 tend to be pretty small in size, like just the way they're segregated. Like I don't see all of that development happening in one map ever. It just had to be its own chapter.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
So you have
think
to
I remember-
introduce the monster and then have some kind of challenge with the monster and then have some kind of like battle with the monster all in one map. Like that just wouldn't have worked.
I remember finding some old lines from whenever C2 whenever chapter 3 was just its own like one map in chapter 2. I remember finding like some old lines, and it's like I didn't get any like visuals of it. Like I didn't know what the map would have looked like, but listening to the lines, it was as if like the GoGnome like showed up and then backup killed it, and then backup was like, "Oh, look at what you've done! Now I've had to deal with this guy," and then that's it. That was it.
It
It's
was
just like anticlimactic compared to what we have.
So exactly, no build up or anything, just straight. I should probably mention as well. So Wilson, let's talk about Wilson for a second. So
For only a second?
well,
I don't know if I believe you.
I'll quickly summarize how the idea of Wilson came around. So I was talking with CW about this one map at the end of chapter 2, and I was saying, okay, you can have this beast chasing you or whatever. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know it was going to be a GoGnome. It was just going to be some big thing, scary thing chasing you. And I said, okay, well, we can't just have you running around in circles. We have to give the player like an objective. So I thought about a key. So you'd have these doors and you'd have to use the key, which you'd have to physically carry. And then CW was like, oh, well, instead of like having just an inanimate object, why can't it be like a turret, and then it can talk to you? And then like within that same 10 minutes, similar to with the conversation with Trivy, CW sent me some like lines, and it was Wilson, and it was like, damn, we have to do this character. We can't not do this character. It's so good. That was the conception of Wilson. Check that out. Sorry, the screenshot that's on there right now, Wilson actually there is just an original Portal turret, like with the white shell and everything. That's so old. Holy crap.
Oh yeah, I was literally about to mention that. Yeah, there it is.
The stream is behind by quite a few seconds for me, so I can't see it.
It was basically like the old white. You know,
there he is.
Yeah,
It was just
yeah.
a prop dynamic as well.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah,
It was. I think it was parented to a fizzbox as well, so it didn't even work in level
Oh my
transitions.
god, it was so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that with the Portal 2 turret model, but I don't remember that or even with the whole Wilson model, but I don't remember that with
Oh my god.
Portal 1 turret model.
Sorry. Look at the old night vision. You'll see it in a sec. The old night vision's on the screen now. It looks terrible compared to what we have now. Good god.
I see an old version of oh, there it is. Okay.
That's pretty,
Oh, boy.
that's pretty shit.
That is an old iteration.
we went through so many different variations on the night vision. I'm not even sure with the one that we've got if we're 100% happy with it. It's hard to do a red night vision. Night vision in general it's tricky.
Well, I remember we had like a lot of conversations about this. The idea was we want it to be functional but not too comfortable.
Yeah.
Because it
that's
just
right.
makes the game look shit. If everything's just washed out red, but you can see everything, players will always sort of try and min-max things naturally. So if they're like, oh, I can see easier with this night vision on, I'm just going to keep it on all the time. And you lose all the colors, you lose all the drama, you lose all the shadows and stuff. It's just boring. So we wanted to make it look kind of, a little bit uncomfortable. So you're sort of discouraged from keeping it on for long periods of time. And I think we kind of managed to hit that mark of it being useful, but not too nice to look at. So you're not keeping it on the whole time and ruining the aesthetic.
I was going to say, you reminded me, I don't know who it was, so I wouldn't name names anyway, but I remember we were watching a tester, and he put night vision on and then left it on for like 2 whole hours of his entire fucking life. And we were like, when's he gonna turn it off? He's missing all the protected textures and everything.
That's actually why, even though we removed the flashlight indicator on the HUD, because the NVG is meant to be sort of like at will. It's not supposed to be a limited resource like the flashlight.
Yeah.
We actually did put the limited timer back on the NVGs just to make sure that you couldn't leave it on indefinitely. So it'll turn itself off after a ridiculous amount of time. It's like 30 seconds or more, maybe. But I'm not sure how happy I am with how that turned out. I do see that sometimes it turns off on people unexpectedly, and then they get really frustrated.
It does recharge like super quick, like a second or two. It does. And it's fully back on, you know?
I wonder if we could have handled that differently. You know, in Half-Life Alyx, Valve just kind of like gave up on trying to give the player control over the flashlight. They just turn it on and off for you, which I don't think that would work for us at all, but like I can see why they went for that. You know, it gives them so much more control over the scene.
It's also worth mentioning that there's now a lot of darkness in like Half-Life 2 and Half-Life Alyx where you use a flashlight in the first place compared to Entropy 0.
Yeah, that's true. We have a lot of moody sort of areas, especially again since we got the projected textures. It allowed us sort of to build tension and atmosphere through like areas of darkness with light. That was a whole thing for chapter 3, wasn't it? And like I remember, Trivy, when you were doing your lighting passes for chapter 3, we were discussing about how it's okay to have areas that are totally dark as long as the player can see something that they're heading to.
Exactly. Yeah, chapter 3 is kind of like my baby when it comes to lighting design. Like that's the only chapter, the whole chapter that I basically took and just did it, like the whole thing. Because originally, I'm not sure if you have any like old development screenshots of chapter 3 before the relight, but originally the whole thing was just orange. And I was hang on, let me cook something up. So I went to Source Filmmaker and just did some like lighting sketches and showed it to you guys, and you're like, you know what, that's pretty good. So I was just like, you know what, I'll just take it off your hands and I'll just do the whole thing, and figured out this whole color coding system with the red sort of denoting the danger areas when you're inside test chambers. You got the orange that sort of denotes the behind the scenes areas and safety, and then you've got that contrasting with the blue for like the caustic goo. And it all just sort of, I think it comes together with this really nice color palette that sort of serves a gameplay purpose and a nice aesthetic purpose as well, with the shadows and stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was, I don't know, you did a great job at that. You made it look considerably less just like it had been fucking tangoed. These screenshots are so good. Go on, one up, sorry.
One person in chat asks, will your review read the surveys live? No, I'm pretty sure that we want to keep the survey open for a longer period of time, so that's not something we're going to review here. I just thought I'd answer that one right away, since, you know, that's more of a time thing. I see a lot of other really good questions in the chat. Make sure if your question isn't answered that you copy it into a notepad or something and post it back at the end, because I'd love to answer all your questions.
Yeah, we're probably going to put up a retrospective survey on like outside of the stream after it's over.
I can tweet it, and I'm still using Twitter. I need to change that, but yeah, we can blast it.
We can even put it on Steam, although we probably need to like have more planning about that. I don't know if we'll have a unique announcement for it.
Yeah, we can have a look at that. One way or another.
I'll get a lot of responses, I think, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna ask. This is just a question for all of you. Like, what would you consider your proudest moment of Entropy 02 being? Can't speak. It's a hard question to answer.
It is.
I think I have multiple answers.
Yeah.
Trying to think most generally, because there's one specific example I've talked about before that always comes to mind, but I don't think it's actually the best answer. I don't think it is the thing I'm most proud of, but it's something really specific that I worked on that I just really, really liked. It's in chapter 0 when we worked on that, the fight with the Metro cops. The way that there's sort of 3 different paths that the scene can take, they all lead to the same outcome. But it's like, depending on how you approach the scene, it'll play out slightly differently. I just really enjoyed putting that together and seeing like all the different variations you can get. Of course, I think 99% of the players kicked the door in, pulled out their pistol, and just shot each of them in the head immediately, without any dialogue passing whatsoever. But that's okay. That's one of the routes. That's an acceptable option. But they say things if you don't shoot them right away. It's really cool. I liked putting that together. But more generally, I like when I think of Easy 2 as a whole, I think like the defining feature that I feel most proud of is just Wilson in general. The Wilson route and the idea of Wilson affecting the outcome of the game. I just feel like there's something really unique and special about that. It's not something that you would see in like a big game release, because I think there's something risky about the idea about making an important part of the plot optional, or making it possible to lose an important part of the plot. It's a big risk in design because some of your players won't get the optimal experience that way. So I just think it's something that a game that isn't a mod wouldn't be able to try, and it makes Easy 2 kind of special.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. 100%.
My own like, I'm most proud of like, it's kind of hard for me to put that together too, because a lot of what I feel most proud of, I feel like isn't perfect or has like some other flaw. It's kind of a mindset that I need to kind of get over, that not everything can be perfect, even if it had more time. But I think one of the things I'm most proud of are the Chapter 0 cameos. Like I put those together and like choreographed them, put them into the game, and some of them even use like completely custom animations.
Yeah,
that's what I'm generally the most proud of, especially since like, you know, it uses like most of like, it uses a lot of like talents that like, you know, I had learned during development, and you know, it's kind of just a product of like how far we've come in many ways. Another thing that I guess like what I would be more proud of, like in regards to like more broadly speaking, or scheme, would also be Wilson. Kind of like I'm proud of how like the NPC came together in terms of like, you know, how he can express using his eye, and how you know, how there's like little details like him moving his arms around when he's idle, or you know, firing like trying to fire whenever he's tipped over. Unfortunately those features were broken for most of the game's release history, so yeah, not a lot of players really experienced that. But you see, this is what I mean, where like, you know, a lot of like the things I'm most proud of are like have like some kind of glaring flaw to them that make me not as proud of them. But
oh, don't be too hard on yourself. Come on, man. It wouldn't be the same without all of that, you know?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
With regards to certain things being broken on release, just think about how many things have been broken in updates to Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
It's kind of similar.
Yeah,
like those Wilson features that you mentioned, it's a very similar thing where it's easy for, if you don't have like test cases where you're constantly checking, does this still work? It's very easy for features to break in software, in any software,
right.
You know? So it's like, it happens all the time. I mean, that's not a good thing, but it's difficult to avoid.
Yeah. Half-Life 2's like grass is still broken.
Yeah, I saw a picture of the grass recently on Reddit, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that's missing.
Yeah, I saw
among
that.
other things too.
Thing, right? It's like, was that grass even there in the first place?
Yeah. That's go on.
I'm still seeing a lot of questions in the chat. Remember to hold your questions for the Q&A if we don't answer them. There's a couple I wanted to answer, because I see a lot of people asking if Retrospective is the name of like an expansion or a DLC or something.
Damn, that is a good name for DLC. It is now.
Yeah, what an amazing name, Retrospective. No, this stream is a retrospective about Easy 2. It's us, you know, a retrospective means that we're looking back on what we made and talking about it. So that's not the name of a game. It would be
lose like 75 viewers.
Yeah, 75 viewers dropped out. Another question I've seen a bunch. I really want to answer some of these questions in Q&A. Somebody's asking, what do you guys think about Easy Uprising? Short answer, it's amazing.
Yeah,
we can talk about it more in the Q&A section, but it's good. It's very good. I'd love to talk about it more.
Yeah,
sorry guys.
I don't mind if we like run over a bit with the Q&A, because this is quite cozy, and I think it would be great to get as many questions answered as we can. So yeah, so questions at the end, please. We'll get to you. So, Spencer, do you have like a proudest moment of working on Easy 2?
Honestly, I think it would probably be when I created the credit song, "Problems of the Mind."
Oh, do you know what? I listen to that
Yeah.
every
Absolute
week.
banger.
Yeah,
So good.
when I made that, I kind of knew it was like that's got to be the credits, and I think when I first made it, I wasn't sure like where it would fit, but after I think I talked with Breadman a little bit through some DMs, and he gave me sort of like what the tone of the ending would be, even though the ending wasn't quite decided at that time. Like the ending went through so many iterations, but I think the tone kind of stayed the same throughout. So yeah, when I made that, it was definitely I felt pretty proud of that because it was a little bit different than some of the other songs that I'd made up until that point. So
I absolutely love that track. Like, I love it. I listen to it all the time. Just when
yeah,
I'm
it's a
like,
good ender.
It is, yeah, it really is. I usually just have it on when I'm like, working or whatever. It's just, yeah. And that's, I think as well, like, I don't know, it's so strange. Like, that track is like, it just encompasses almost, for me, it's like it encompasses the whole development because it was like one of the last ones you did, I think, for the
Oh,
project.
the stream's gone black, by the way.
Oh yeah,
That's interesting.
That don't worry, it's just me playing around. I'm basically a silly thing. Hang on, there you go. I'll put that. Put up the screenshots again. I'm moving screenshots.
Don't turn us into a podcast.
No. Oh no. I'm just moving some.
I was just
screenshots.
thinking, like, can we get some more screenshots? Because I think we've kind of cycled through all of these.
Yeah. So what I'm doing.
I want to keep the visuals interesting as well.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me,
Problems of the Mind is so emotional. I think it really adds to the ending of the game and the feeling of the ending. I can't believe how good the whole soundtrack is. I think it elevates the game a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So many leitmotifs and stuff that you
100%.
can identify that they all come together in the credits. I just love it. It's such a wrap-up song.
Absolutely, and it is really emotional. I think we should touch on that in a minute because we'll talk about the ending and the endings and the pain that we had to go through to get to where we ended up eventually. Just moving on for a minute. Oh, Trivy, go on. What was your proudest moment, would you say?
I've already mentioned it, but I think doing the chapter 3 lighting, funnily enough, like, don't get me wrong, like voicing Bad Cop and the advisors and everything, a lot of fun. But yeah, there's a reason why lighting art is like my job. It's what I'm like super passionate about. So being able to just take that chapter, and it was a horror chapter as well, and lighting horror is like really fun. So being able to just design the entire, visual lighting coding for an entire chapter was very, very fun, and I'm very proud of that chapter.
You did an awesome job on that.
Absolutely.
I was when we said we were going to put Portal into this game, I was like a little skeptical at first, but you were able to match everything like super well with the lighting, man. You knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. Yeah, not just Portal, but Horror Portal. Has
Yeah.
anybody else done that yet?
I think there are some horror mods for Portal. I haven't played enough.
Snap, I want to play them.
Yeah, I haven't played enough Portal mods.
Thinking with Fear. I forgot about that one. I remember that one.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that was. I think it was like I put it forward as maybe a name for Chamber Catacomb as a chapter.
Yes, you did.
And I think I suggested it as like an achievement for if you get for all the chambers without alerting the beast, but I don't think anything ever came of that. So
I didn't realize that was the name of another mod.
Yeah.
What Thinking with Fear?
Yeah, isn't that what you guys were saying? That it's a Portal mod? Sorry, I might have misunderstood that.
I didn't hear anything about it, but I thought I was just talking about Portal horror mods more generally.
Yeah, I think Thinking with Fear is a Portal mod. I'm pretty sure I've heard of that one.
Oh, okay.
I've definitely heard of it before. I remember when we had our conversation about the chapter title. I'm pretty sure when we were having that conversation, it's weird I remember this. I'm
Well,
sure
I
I'd
just
heard
googled it
before.
and nothing came up,
There's
so I
nothing.
think we're just all having a
Oh
shared
my God.
hallucination.
Either that, or we've moved into a different universe where thinking with fear doesn't exist. So we could get on that. We could trademark that. Right. So, proudest moment for me. I got like 100. I think one of the things that we did really well. For me, I'll do two. Right. Personally, for me, it was mastering external environments and like displacement work, because I was really rubbish at that when we started Entropy 02. I remember when we were, I think it might have been chapter 6, or even when we were doing externals. I can't remember when it was, but there was one point in development when we sat down and I said, I've really got to sort out my displacements because they look garbage. And I basically took a week and I was looking through how Valve did their displacements in the Antline Caves in episode 2, like decompiled maps and like looked at the displacement meshes and tried to figure out how they did it, and then basically played around with it until I was happy with it. And that was invaluable, like just like taking the time away and actually not actively developing and just working on that skill did so much for Entropy 02, because you see like all the caves in Chirality, I can't fucking pronounce it, Chirality, and all this sort of improved displacement work that I did, sort of backdated it through the mod. I think it was great that I was able to do that. So for me, that was like a personal skill. One of my proudest things was to work on that. But I think as a whole, the thing I'm most proud of with Entropy 02, aside from the story, is how good we are at designing and implementing NPCs, because that is not an easy thing. You know, when we set out to do the Go Gnome, up until that point, we had just made minor changes to like the rebels and everything, and we were sort of treading lightly with our NPC changes, I think. And then when we were having discussions about getting the Go Gnome set up, there was a bit of like, right, how are we going to do this, you know? And we got, I think it was it what's his name, Sergeant Stacker? Was it Stacker's code?
Yep, that's right.
Wasn't that like a copy of, I say a copy, wasn't that like essentially the Go Gnome from Half-Life 1 but ported? Is that right? Or was that like...
I think it was based
It was
on. No,
similar.
I think it was based on the Bull Squid code. I think.
Wow, I did not know that.
I
That's
think
crazy.
literally just to have like 2 Bull Squid code that comes with the SDK.
Yeah, so the SDK, like the source SDK 2013 that people use to make Half-Life 2 mods now, that code has the bull squid in it. Even though the bull squid was cut, the code is still in the SDK 2013.
It
So I
actually
think
has a
that's
code
where
for,
Stacker used that as a base and modified it to fit the GNOME, because the original GNOME was kind of probably a modified bull squid. I don't think
Right.
Opposing Force is open source, but
It's not.
but the people are reasonably sure that that's mostly just the bull squid code.
Right. So I mean, that was like, that for me, when I look back on Entropy 02's development, that was when things changed for us. When we got the GNOME implemented, and then we got a model for it, and we kind of just like, it was like, oh my god, we did it. Like, we were talking about this massively sort of, what's the word? My mind's just gone blank. It's a really like difficult thing to do, I think. And we did it really well. And not only that, we were able to design the NPC to fit perfectly with that chapter. And then it was really obviously fun seeing how that NPC interacted with the world, you know, later on in the mod, when we were like, should we throw in a GNOME, like in chapter 5 or whatever? Should we have GNOMEs come out of Zen grenades? We were like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it and see what happens. And it was like really exciting, and it created those like moments of gameplay where, you know, of course there's not supposed to be a GNOME there, but you used a Zen grenade, so now there is, and you kind of just have to deal with the consequences. Like, I love that kind of like implication to that NPC, you know, emergent gameplay.
I think that was also one of the most exciting things about the Zen grenades, knowing that any fight in the game could be changed with the Zen grenades. So maybe there's an antline guard in the fight now. You know, maybe there's a squad of pit drones there. It makes it a lot more dynamic, because you never know what you're going to get if you decide to use Zen grenades.
Exactly. But I mean, when we were developing Entropy 02, we got the GNOME, and then it was almost like, to me at least, once we had the GNOME and it was working, it was like, holy shit, like, we can do anything. Like, we've just made this whole new NPC, it's got a model, it's got sounds, it does everything we need it to do. I felt really like empowered by that, and suddenly everything that we were sort of looking forward on our story and stuff, it didn't seem to be what's the fucking word? Why can't I think of the word? You know when something's really hard and it's like, that's a little bit fuck, my mind has gone completely
Ambitious?
Ambitious, that's the word. Thank you, Trivi. Because I think, like when people plan mods, they tend to sort of be a bit ambitious, and I think Entropy 02 probably was quite ambitious from the start, even with like the original plot with the reduced scope that I had at the beginning. But we sort of kept adding to our scope, but we didn't really do that until we had made the GNOME, because we were like, right, we can do all of these other ambitious things, but we have the confidence that we can see them through. I was really proud of that, because I don't think Entropy 02 would have gone where it did if we hadn't decided to tackle the GNOME. Like, we wouldn't have had...
It was a turning point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the bull squids and the bull squid babies, and the pit drone, you know, all of these changes that we made to NPCs. And that is echoed even, like, to now. Like, that update that you just pushed to the beta branch of Entropy 02 contains some brand new NPCs, which are really exciting. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it changed everything for us, and it was just by saying, right, we're going to have a GNOME. We didn't sit down and say, that's going to be too ambitious, we're never going to find a model. Like, we didn't think about that, we just fucking did it. It was amazing to see it happen like that. So I was really
And then we
proud
tried to
of
keep
that.
it under wraps for years.
Oh, we did, we tried to keep it secret. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got a few thoughts. First of all, I want to point out something from the chat. I see that Silta is in the chat. That just reminded me of a development story I wanted to share.
Go for it.
When we released Easy 2, we wanted to watch someone play through it. Like, we had hit the button, the game was live, everyone was downloading it, and we're like, okay, we just want to watch some gameplay now. And we ended up all watching, I think it was Silta's Twitch stream
Yes,
of the game on the day it released.
We
just had all the developers in the stream, because we were like trying to find different people's streams. We saw like different people were playing, but somehow we ended up on that one.
Yeah, we were all there.
It was a good stream.
Yeah, big up Silta.
Yeah, we watched that for hours. Like, I was just saying,
Yeah.
that was great.
It was such a good feeling of like, after 5 years of work, the game was out and people were playing it, and we just got to kind of sit back and finally see what we had made. That was a good day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Lead up to release was so stressful as well. When we were like, I'm pretty sure we found a bug, didn't we, in like one of our pre-release? I'm pretty sure we found like a game-breaking bug. It was that there was a crash bug, wasn't there, in chapter 5? You know, with the big street war bit, there was that fucking trigger. I never forget it, because we got on stream and we were like, we're gonna figure this out.
Was that to release?
I'm pretty sure that was like a week out or something like ridiculous.
No.
Was it? It must have been.
Wow.
It was close. It was really close. But I just remember that because we were like, we got on that stream that night and we were like, we are not leaving until we fix this fucking bug.
And then we still have a crash in apprehension.
And now we still have a fucking crash in apprehension. Yeah. Oh my god.
So I think I was supposed to talk about the sort of turning point when we made the GNOME.
Yeah. Go for it.
Wow, where do I even start? Because that was a lot of my involvement. We did know that we wanted to have bull squids in the game before that point. I remember that you, Breadman, you and I had talked about it very early on, like maybe before I even started working on Easy 2, but very casually. I don't think we were very serious about implementing the bull squid until later on. And the GNOME was kind of a turning point, because we didn't know exactly how it was going to go. Like, there was a lot of talk about like, well, can't we just sort of fake it? Can we just throw a prop GNOME in there and have it like animate around? And the problem is that it's too easy to tell when something is not like responding to you, right? Like, the GNOME needs to be able to follow you. It needs to be able to like have an awareness of where you are. It really needed AI to be convincing as a monster. So we got the GNOME from Sergeant Stacker and made a lot of changes to it. And that was kind of an ongoing process that evolved a lot. Because that GNOME shared a lot of code with the bull squid, after I had implemented the bull squid, we started out with that bull squid code and the model from Half-Life Source originally. But comparing the code with the GNOME and the bull squid, I sort of like, I ended up combining them, making them share some code. So I created sort of a template from that, or a base class that other aliens could inherit from. And so once we had that base code of like, here's all the behavior that defines an alien monster, we could use that to make more things like the Stukabats and the pit drones. And so it all kind of like evolved from there. Once we had the Gonome and the Bull Squid, the other aliens evolved from them. And that was still a point in development where like it was still a little bit of the Wild West. I think early on in development, like the closer to the beginning of development, the more we just kind of did random things and experimented more. We didn't have as clear of a goal in mind. And the later in development, the closer we were to release, the more we were focused on like, okay, how do we, make sure this is a cohesive experience? So I think it was probably like late 2019 or 2020, probably in 2020 when I was working on those aliens after the Bull Squid was done, and took a lot of liberties. It was really kind of experimenting with like what can we do and what works.
That was so fun though. It was so fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Like yeah,
the pit drones were an accident. They weren't supposed to be in the game. But I was trying to work on a projectile attack that I thought that the Stukabats would use. So I had the Stukabats shooting crossbow bolts, and that's when I realized, I was like, hey, without the flight capabilities, this is literally just what a pit drone is. It's a Bull Squid that shoots spikes, and it's like lighter, less armor, that sort of thing. So that's where the pit drone idea came from originally. So basically, the Gonome was a turning point. Once we had that, we realized we can do custom NPCs, and from there, we sort of branched out into all the different NPCs that are in the game now.
Amazing, wasn't it? It was such a good turning point for us. Just changed everything. So, just moving on from that to the next thing in our little schedule that we've got here. I'm going to ask Trivy, what is it like being bad cop? Change the tone completely. What's it like being bad cop, Trivy? Character-wise and all sorts. Go on.
Being bad cop changed throughout development, as we know. Funnily enough, I was just listening through some super old lines, and oh my god, I just remember how torn up my throat would get from doing him in the beginning. Because I was like, he just needs to sound as gruff as humanly possible. And if I put like a WAV file in our little chat, can you play it?
Yeah, I should be able to. I can see if it'll come through on the stream. Yeah, we can definitely.
All right, hang on, because I was just like looking through like some of the oldest like lines I did. And I'm like, oh my god, how the hell did I keep that up for so long? So hang on.
Yeah, sure. We'll see if I can play this or not.
There you go. It's going into voice chat developer, just one of the antline taunts, and that is how I used to do the voice.
Right, I'm gonna turn down the music to play this. Hold on. Here we go.
Should have crawled back in your hole. Should have crawled back in your hole. Should have crawled back in your hole.
That's what it sounds like whenever it doesn't have a filter.
It's terrible, isn't it? Like,
I seem to remember you saying that you had to like down Coca-Cola after.
You like. I remember that you had to like you changed like what you did with vocoding, and you like asked for feedback. That really became apparent whenever I was like trying to sort stuff into generic lines, and like I got to hear like the exact differences between a vocoder over the years. It's interesting.
Yeah, but
it's harder to
that's
notice.
how we sounded like 3-4 years ago, right? So that's how we sounded in the beginning. Doesn't sound like that anymore. I could tell you that. But remember when we did the Q&A, the bad cop Q&A?
Yes!
I was doing that voice then. Fucking killed me.
You did that the whole time?
For like an hour straight, right?
Ow.
Jeez.
That's dedication though. Holy shit.
Yeah, oh my god, it's like I had like a really bad cold afterwards, from how bad my throat was afterwards. But now he just sounds like a generic, like, I think somebody was asking me, do the bad cop voice without the vocoder. You're gonna be disappointed. It just sounds like the most generic American bad guy, ever. Like, literally, it just sounds like, die, parasite. That's how he sounds, very generic kind of guy. What other lines do
I was
you hear?
listening to some of your lines that you had sent unvocoded recently, and it was kind of struck me.
Yes, yeah.
It sounds so much different than you would expect.
The vocoding does a lot of lifting.
It's so good that we were able to retain that emotion though in your voice, despite the fact that we got the vocoding. That was really important.
Yeah, you kind of have to overact a bit, I find, because I do find the vocoder does flatten things out a bit, so you have to sort of really over-dramatize the way you act to sort of get that to come through on the vocoder.
That's interesting.
And that was a lot harder to do with the old tearing my throat apart voice. So adapting it into the more smoother sounding, easier to do voice did improve the acting a lot, I think, because I could emote more with my voice and really force that through in the vocoding.
I think Bad Cop's character changed a lot as well, like just in general.
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to touch on that because originally he was people complain about him being edgy now. He was a super fucking edgy boy.
He
before.
was.
Like, the one line that comes to mind that it took us ages to take it out because we kind of low-key loved it because it was so cheesy. But it was the beginning of chapter 2 that kicks in the door.
Oh, no.
Surprise, fuckers! Time to die.
Oh my god, I loved it.
That was like a reference point for like what not to do in terms of edginess.
And
Yeah,
I just
it was
fucking
so
love
funny,
that
though.
line so much. Surprise, fuckers! Time to die.
It was such like a stupid Duke Nukem-y
Yeah.
sort of line to say. We kind of loved it because it was cheesy, but in the
Yeah.
end we were like, no, we gotta rein it back. There were so many
It
things
would,
we pulled
it would be
back.
funny. It'd be
In a
funny
weird
if-
way, I think the writing is similar to what I said about like us developing more things without a clear aim in mind at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where it's like we started out very over the top with all the writing, and we ended up still over the top, but it's balanced in a way. Like we had to find the right level of I don't want to say edginess, but you know the right amount of character.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
go
what
ahead.
I like to explain about Bad Cop, right? Because people say, oh, he's so cheesy, he's quippy, he's not believable. And the whole point of his character is he's kind of self-aware that he's being this way. He's super cocky and arrogant. We've gone through this before in previous streams, but I
Yeah.
suppose we'll touch on it again because it keeps coming up. But he's got this confidence to him. He's got the whole Combine behind him. He's, a bit of a psychopath. And he's just having fun with it. He's in this new body. He feels invincible. And he's not afraid to be cocky about it because he's just that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy to make stupid, references and stuff when he kills people because he's just that kind of person. He knows he's being cringe and he's embracing it, like the guy who makes dad jokes unironically or ironically and
Well, I mean, he is a
unironically,
dad.
you know.
He's gonna dad joke. It's just like a
He is a
thing.
dad.
Never thought about it that way before.
You didn't know.
He's doing
Wow.
it to make the enemies cringe before he kills them. It's
Yeah.
He's deliberately
Oh God, that was
cringe.
terrible.
We know he's cringe. He's doing it deliberately. This is the thing. It's like people complain about it as if we don't know, or that Bad Cop doesn't know. He knows.
Oh,
he
he
knows.
knows
He's deliberately
full well.
being this way.
Absolutely.
I think it's mainly the pop culture references and stuff that.
There are some little Easter egg things in there, right? A little bit of wink.
I think
wink,
I overdid
like
it on the pop culture.
I don't know. I see that complaint a lot, but I don't feel like I understand it very well.
There's barely
like-
any.
Yeah, there's barely any. And the other thing is that, like, it's a mixture of some of them are in character and some of them are meta. Like, he references things that obviously weren't out when, or that don't
Yeah, it's
exist
like
in
a
this
TF2
timeline,
reference
I
in there,
guess.
right?
Dad cop.
There's
Yeah.
a low chance if you blow somebody up that he goes, they'll be burying what's left of you in a soup can. That's just a stupid, TF2
Yeah.
reference in there. It's not supposed to be taken seriously.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I kind of feel like with those lines, like, the question I ask myself is that not something he would say naturally? And it's like, I could hear it, like, it doesn't have to be a reference to Team Fortress 2. I can see the character saying that, and that's why it's a meta reference. It's not like he doesn't know that he's referencing Team Fortress 2. He probably does know that he's referencing Die Hard, though. That one, I feel like he probably loves that movie.
Oh, I feel like a TV dinner. Yeah, totally knows he's
Yeah.
he's in the car. He's a cop, and it just works on
I
so
do
many
wonder-
levels.
I do wonder if we were to if we were making Entropy 02 from scratch, how much I feel like there's some things that are still in the game that we decided not to cut that we would have still done differently if we were having to do them from scratch. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I do hear
definitely.
the way he says "die, parasite" for like every fucking line.
Yeah.
every other. Oh, one of the new AR2s. Nice. Do you remember you used to say that?
Oh my
thousand
god.
times? Every time I tested a map.
Then when he picks up the prototype AR2, one of the old AR2s, nice.
Yeah.
I see a giant red text that says Skybox Buildings. What is that picture supposed to be?
Oh, that would have been something that I was showing with you guys probably in Discord when we were developing. That would have been chapter 5.
Oh yeah, whenever you
Yeah.
were putting the buildings from C5 2 into C5 1, and you got the alignment wrong because you misunderstood
Yeah,
what you were
that's
supposed to.
right. The maps were the wrong fucking way.
Yeah.
How did
It's
we
all right.
screw that up?
I don't think it amounted to anything in a huge way. So
No,
it's all right.
no. Oh dear. But yeah, like Bad Cop's character changed so much, and like Tribby said, he's very self-aware. That, you know, I think I don't know, we changed like. I think in like 1UpD, you said it best. Like in the beginning, we kind of didn't have anything to aim at. He was just a quip machine, basically, and he would just say cheesy shit.
Machine. I remember. I remember looking at like past Discord messages for like when like Clone Cup was developed, and it's like I just remember finding and like seeing like you and Max and like CW talking about it, really early on, and it's like like the only like description of Backhouse was like something about his father or something, like it was like really
Yeah.
it was really interesting, like really vague, and it was interesting to get like insight, see like kind of what the thought process was with what Bad Cop's past would have been like, and like how it was kind of ambiguous.
I seem to remember, like, really early in development, I was like, we're not going to talk about Bad Cop's past, and then it changed to he's going to be in a conflict with his new host body, and he was going to have hallucinations, and like we're going to see shadow people and shit like that. You remember all that? Like in chapter 1 there was that like shadow, and it was always just going to be like, we were just going to allude to his past. We weren't actually going to spell it out. But then when we sat down and we were writing the story, it kind of looked like, it kind of felt like we had to do something with his past to kind of justify the way that he behaved. Like, because like I said, he was a quip machine, but then we wanted that to change. We kind of wanted there to be a reason for that, so we developed his character more. So he's a quip machine, but he knows he's self-conscious that he's doing it. He's kind of doing it to cope with everything else that's going on as well. So
He's just coping and seething the entire
What is my purpose?
Coping
To make
and
quip.
seething.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, we gave him motivation, didn't we? So I think it just all came together so wonderfully in the end. Like the whole story about how his motivation is what drives him. The Combine are using that to drive him for their own purposes, and all this trauma he's had in his past have sort of amalgamated into this sort of psychopath that he is today. And I think it all just fits together so well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the end we managed to pin it together so well. I'm really pleased with how his character came together. I think this leads nicely into the next point. Writing Entropy 02 was extremely difficult, and I nearly jumped out of a window like 8 times whilst we were doing it, and I know 1UpD can definitely attest to that, because myself and 1UpD would talk a lot about the writing and drafts and the themes and everything. It was real hard to get this story right, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
So difficult.
We had not an entire rewrite, but we had a massive rewrite like
Yes, we
2-3 years in.
We did like
Was that when you say the massive rewrite? Is that around the same time that we changed like a lot of the response lines and the quips?
I think so. I think it came from a playtest or something like that. We'd literally were making chapter 6. Like the Borealis was there. We were making the ending. We were making the ending with the Zen grenade where he falls off the bridge and he hits the button, and then I can't remember what the feedback was, but we got some feedback and we were like, we need to fucking change the story.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever mentioned that publicly, that the old ending had Bad Cop using a Zen grenade. Like that's what that weapon ending is about. Like instead. Sorry,
go on. I was going to say we're going to get onto the endings in a minute, but you're absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. Like, because you're spot on.
Right. Yeah. We were originally like even just all of the everything leading up to it was different at one point. But basically instead of like the Borealis, instead of being sucked into the Borealis, you were going to fall off of the gantry and like to you're gonna fall to, and Backup was gonna be falling like to his death, and to escape that he would pull out a Zen grenade and like send himself to Zen.
Yeah, that's
That
it.
weapon is still in the game.
It is.
It
Weapon
is.
Endgame.
I
think
see
there's even
people
still logic
talking
for it
about
in
it
that.
occasionally, and that always makes me smile. It's like, what's Weapon Endgame for? And
Yeah.
that's what it's for.
And you can, what does it? Do we remember like what entity do you need to have in the map to teleport to? Because like we should tell
Oh
them that.
no,
Well, was it?
I think
it? Go on.
I think it fires a specific named relay. Maybe I don't remember, or maybe it
Yeah.
fires an output on the entity. I mean, we could look back in the map history and probably find that, but I believe it's like I think it's an output on the weapon entity itself that says like on endgame. Then you can fire a relay or do whatever you want in the map.
Yeah, that's right. Because you can. It's like the displacer from opposing force. Basically.
Yeah,
That's how it functions.
So the weapon endgame, that was something that I was really excited about as a way of like, I feel like new weapons, especially when they're like new kind of gameplay mechanics, should impact the story and the plot a lot. So the idea of having Bad Cop using a Zen grenade as a last resort, I think that's actually what the HUD says. It says like your last resort or something like that.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Oh, God,
I thought that
forgot.
was nice as a way of paying off the weapon as not just a random tool that you encounter, but like part of the plot.
A special tool
but-
that will help us later.
I'm sorry.
It's alright.
But yeah, so I can't remember why. I mean, we cut it because the ending changed, and it became more of a constraint on the ending than a help, I think, because it made more sense for us to go straight to the Borealis rather than going to Zen, especially because like it's right there. It's already been sold as like a major part of the plot, and also like it's the literal landmark in the map that you can see. Like it just makes more sense if you go to the Borealis, not to Zen. You're not expecting that, right?
Yeah.
I thought
I
Weapon
think
Endgame was cool, but it needed to go because the plot changed.
I remember there was a lot of confusion with playtesters not knowing they needed to throw the grenade.
I remember that. They would just hold on
Oh,
to it
yeah.
and fall to death.
Oh yeah, they just we kept
In
making
slow
them fall
motion, too.
slower and slower and slower until they're just like gradually floating down the ravine, and they still wouldn't hit the button.
I totally forgot that we made the fall slower. It's just fucking ridiculous in hindsight. Like, why is he falling slowly?
Bad Cop pulling out a Zen grenade, looking at the button and saying, "Guess there's only one way out of this," and then he just slowly floats down into the chasm without pressing the button.
Dies.
I think
well,
part is
We originally never had plans for G-Man to show up. Like that was a massive
Oh,
point
yeah.
of contention
Yeah,
for a long time because we
the
felt
whole-
like too many
yeah.
mods leaned on the G-Man popping in and be like, "Hey, super special, original character. I'm the G-Man, and I think you're cool."
You're
We found that to be
totally-
super cringe, and we're like, we don't want to be like that. But I think the way we ended up putting him in there actually really makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, it happened late in development though, so like he kind of does end up being a bit of a Deus Ex Machina in a lot of ways.
I wish we would have involved him more earlier in the game. And I remember it did kind of surprise me when Breadman, when you first started talking about the G-Man, because I think the idea at that point in time, at least from my perspective, I know like the ending changed so much that we probably all have different ideas about where the ending was going to go at that point in time. But like I thought that it was going to be Weapon Endgame takes you to Zen, and then Bad Cop would be sort of marooned there. But then Breadman, you came up with this idea that the G-Man should be there and talk to you, and that was kind of shocking a little bit because we had tried to avoid the G-Man.
We had.
But
yeah.
looking back on development now, I feel like, maybe we had a little bit of amnesia. Entropy Zero involves the G-Man a lot. Like, he's really important to the story. Of course, he should be in Entropy Zero too. He's a major character in Entropy Zero. Like, it seems like a weird thing for us to think in hindsight that we wanted to not involve the G-Man at all. Like he definitely should be paid off in some way because he's mentioned in EZ1 a lot. And I'm really, really happy with the voice that CW did.
Oh, so good.
Turned out so
Absolutely
good.
phenomenal. Yeah.
And I mean, again, that was one of those situations where we were talking about the G-Man, and then within 30 seconds, CW just drops into the chat his G-Man, like, line, and it's like, holy shit, you sound so good, like you sound just like him. And it was like, hey, if we wanted to do this, we have all the stuff, like we have the means, you know. Yeah, G-Man was we were kind of shy of him, I think, when we were drafting and writing. And I think at one point we even said, we're not going anywhere near the G-Man. Like, it's such a cliche fucking thing that everyone does. Everyone's got to have the G-Man show up in their mod.
Yeah.
And we were like, we don't want to touch him with a yard pole, you know? And then when we were writing the endings and... Oh my god. Right, let me change the slideshow. Let me throw... I've got some old pictures. You remember the old endings?
Yeah, let's look at those.
I remember the original drafts, like that we had written for them before we got to that point in development, and they worked different.
Oh yeah, let me.
I think part of our fear with the G-Man was that it was going to turn into just bad cop gets hired. It would be a very typical mod ending. But I think what makes the G-Man's involvement easy to work better than that is that the G-Man's relationship with bad cop is completely different from the way he treats Gordon or Alex or Adrian or anyone else he's interacted with, because it's different. I think that works.
Yeah, 100%. Now I don't actually think I've ever shown off these screenshots, so they're probably going to be really jarring. Look, there's bad cop sulking next to a fucking. Wait till you see it. Wait till you see it.
On my screen, I still see a bull squid with G-Man.
I can't believe.
I don't even remember that.
Bull squid.
I got fucking bad cop sulking next to a fucking plant thing. Why did I do that?
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, was that? Wait. Oh, is the bad cop model only there so that you can put the camera?
Yeah, because that's right. So apparently the camera to the eye, so he's kind of like just sulking in Zen. But this was from that draft, like when we said bad cop would be stranded in Zen. There was some of that in here. But okay, so the endings, let me just quickly touch on all of the endings that I remember, because there were so many endings.
I don't think you can touch on all of them.
I remember the earliest ones, at least.
So
can you go back to what did you think the ending was going to be like in 2018?
Oh my god.
You know.
I'm trying to remember now.
I could tell jog your memory, because I do actually remember a bit of it. I don't think I remember the earliest, but I remember we were working with like around that time in 2019 and stuff.
What do you remember, Blix?
I remember that originally Backup was gonna fight Clone Cop. Then there was gonna be a decision on whether to spare him or kill him. It wouldn't matter in the end, because Backup would walk up and then go talk to the advisor, and the advisor would reward him with like a vision of like combine greatness, and then tell him to go.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And then tell him to proceed to the Borealis, and then you go to the Borealis, Backup jumps on, but then it disappears underneath his feet.
And he dies. And, yes, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was told, I think that originally he would fall into the like ravine and get frozen, and then that turned into the Zen grenade thing.
Yeah, that was
where
it.
He would, that was why we came up with a Zen grenade endgame thing originally, is because the Borealis was going to disappear underneath his feet.
I was going to
I see one screenshot. The screenshot on the stream is probably moved already because I'm behind. But I see one where it's actually a picture of a bug. You can see a tree, but with the Zen skybox, because the Zen skybox isn't supposed to be there.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You see that?
Yeah. I was going to say, touching on what Blix was saying, I had two ideas for that ending. The first one was that you were going to fall into cold water and Backup was going to freeze to death. And that would be like, oh, Entropy 0, oh, you've frozen. And the other one was like really going to be really grisly, and there would be like these like massive spiky icicles at the bottom, and he'd get impaled, and it would be like really gratuitous. And I just dropped that idea pretty quickly. But yeah, I remember that. I totally forgot that. Like, he was going to go for the ship, and when he was going to jump for it, it would be really ironic, and the ship would like disappear underneath him, and then he would just fall and die, and it would be like,
I think, yeah.
You thought you had it.
I think we also said something about like maybe the G-Man could like flash up for a second to show it he was like preventing Bad Cop from boarding it.
Yeah, I think I recall something like that. But it would literally...
That would make sense.
Yeah, it would just be like a flash, though. It wouldn't be like a cause and effect, Mr. Walker, or whatever, you know. He would just die, basically. Yeah.
I remember reading a document that I think originally... I don't know when you sent it to me, actually. But it was an old version of the story from before the idea of Bad Cop even being a Combine elite was written. It was like you were still a Metro Cop and you went back to City 10. It was old, like way before I got involved, but it just shows how much the story has changed.
Yeah, so there was an old shot actually of that. The original Entropy 02 story, you would wake up in a piece of the Citadel that had been destroyed. The Combine basically told you, go and find Breen's body, which you would find it, and it would be like his torso. And on his, like in his shirt pocket, he would have this like arming key, which you would then take to City 10 and put in that Citadel to basically try and fire up another portal, basically, in City 10. But then, of course...
I knew about the arming key. I didn't know you were going to actually like get it off of Breen's body.
Yeah,
That's
I was going to
crazy.
go crazy with it. I was really ambitious.
We mentioned that like last time this came up, like Breadman said torso, and then we were all laughing about it.
Yeah.
Just his torso, he just picked
Do you
up.
guys think we could answer 3 Q&A questions real quick before one chatter has to leave?
Yeah. Go for it.
I've got more ending stuff to say, but I want to quick answer these questions if we can. So, what short and sweet advice would you give to a developer in the midst of developing an ambitious source mod? That's a loaded question. Actually, I'm going to skip that one and come back to it. That's a really good question, but first I'll answer the other ones because they're quicker. Do you use Hammer++? Why or why not? No, because we use manifests in Entropy 02, and they're not supported in Hammer++. Hammer++ does have a lot of features that I would like to see, but we're not using it right now. What kind of writing rules?
It was full of bugs as well because I was testing it out and I was like, oh, this is cool, but literally like trigger volumes are solid.
If I recall correctly,
Sorry, I don't know why that makes me laugh so much.
if I recall
I
correctly,
had that too.
I think Hammer++ does like turn manifests into instances automatically, although I don't know the mechanism of that. So
Is it really?
that's what I was told when I asked the creator of it about it, but I don't remember.
I'm sorry, I probably should have checked that at some point. I didn't. Yeah. Well, I haven't made the switch yet. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to switch for a while just because I've been rocking Hammer for years since I was a teenager. So I'm just going to not touch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch the stove.
I didn't know that about the manifest being automatically turned into instances. That is tempting. But
yeah,
we can talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah.
What kind of writing rules did you have to keep in order to keep 36 compelling as a voice character?
Writing rules. Well,
It
to be
was
honest,
no man's land.
it was kind of like the Wild West. I'll be completely honest. I kind of I put a lot of faith in Trivy to keep the characterization consistent, which he did an amazing job of. But the other thing is, I suppose, actually, one thing we did do is we consulted with the actors. Like I would ask Trivy sometimes to either ad-lib, or I'd say to Trivy, does this line sound like shit? Like the one where, I can't remember what it was now, when he's shooting somebody, and I said, how does this sound? And it was something like, hope you enjoy your new asshole, or something like that. It was something really terrible. And Trivy was like, no, we should say this instead. We kind of had that process of
I'm so glad that he did, because that sounds like a terrible line.
Exactly, yeah. I just pulled that out of my hat now, but it was like, that was kind of like the way we did it. Like when I was writing, if I felt like I was, sort of odd, I don't know how to describe it. If I felt like I wasn't on the right track or I needed some guidance, we would consult with the actors, and I did the same in CW as well. I think Trivy, you actually ad-libbed a lot of the lines, didn't you?
Yeah. If it's funny, I wrote it. If it's terrible, Breadman.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's a pretty good gauge. Exactly.
I want to loop around to the first question that we got in that set at the end in the Q&A session, because it'll be too long. I see a bunch of other questions in the chat. Remember, hold your questions in like a notepad or something and repost them for us during the Q&A, and we'll get back around to them.
Half an hour until the official end, which is going to be like, oh, that's Q&A now. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't mind. Like, if you guys have got the time,
just
I don't
one
mind
question I wanted to answer from the chat before we move on. I see somebody asks, do you think that 13 years old can make a good Half-Life 2 mod? And I just wanted to say, I think that's about how old I was when I first picked up Hammer.
Yeah, same here.
And the mod that I made
Source. Sorry.
back then, I wasn't able to publish it. I do still have it.
You still have it?
You know, it's somewhere. I'll have to dig that up.
We've got to see
but,
it.
It's, you know, it's a really good time to start learning. I don't think that you can expect to very quickly, you know, make something huge. But the better that you can start small and just say, like, what's something that I can learn to make. You know, every time you learn a new skill, that's something new that you can use again. And so I just think it's a really important time for you to try. I think that you can make a good mod, you know. And
Yeah.
if you don't have success with it right away, you should keep trying, because it's not always easy and it's not always fast, but you can eventually make something amazing.
So I just want
the
to
best.
go on, Trivia. Go
Go
on.
on, Breadman.
I was going to
Oh,
say.
fuck, we're in that.
Oh. No, you go. You go. After you, sir.
Very well. Yeah, we're going to get into that horrible British thing where we're just like, no, you know.
No, you after you.
I was going to say the best advice I can give to somebody like starting out doing modding in like Half-Life 2 and Source is don't start out making a mod, because you'll get too ambitious and you'll get like discouraged and end up not publishing anything. Start out like mapping competitions, make small single maps. You know, use those as an opportunity to learn the tools and challenge yourself in those ways, and just focus on small little projects that you know that you can finish, where you have a set scope and you can get them out there and you can get feedback from other people, from other mappers. If you start out with a mod, that is a massive undertaking, like you don't even realize.
Yeah.
So start out with singular maps and work your way up from there. That's all I wanted to say.
I must say, so I started with Hammer when I was 8, which is crazy when I look back. But that's because
That is crazy.
It wasn't even Hammer then; it was Worldcraft, and it was on the Half-Life 1 disc. But I made the leap to Source when I was 13, and that's when I picked up, you know, the Hammer that we know, and the one that pretty much the one that we've used for Entropy 02. And I basically dicked around in Hammer for a good 5 years. I must have been 19 when I released my first map on Face Punch, which was when I coined the crappy name Breadman. Like, but that's how long it took me to sort of get to just releasing a map. Like, I didn't even think about tackling a mod until, you know, after I'd done the 3 Ghost Hunt map releases. That's when I started working on Heartly Asylum, which would have been my first sort of proper mod. I will admit something though, and people who know me well will remember this. Back when I must have been about 15 years old, I was on a forum called Half-Life Fallout. I started making a mod called Combine Assault, and I was working with a bunch of other 12, 13, 11-year-olds at that time on that mod. We did release it, so it might be out there somewhere, but it was fucking awful, and it was so ambitious, it was ridiculous. It was a mod about the 7-hour war, and yeah, I made a map for that. It was terrible. It was just awful. But yeah, so after that I thought, you know, I'm just sticking to maps for the foreseeable. But it took a long time, like, because Source was so different as well to Gold Source, because we had the physics stuff. I think I've got videos somewhere on my YouTube channel you might be able to find of old maps I built back then, where I was literally just playing with physics, and I just did it all day, every day, because I was insane. So yeah, good on you for starting early.
I'm sorry for derailing our retrospective here.
That's all right.
I just wanted to keep an eye on the chat so I'm not missing anything. But yeah, definitely hold any questions that you might have for the Q&A section, so we can look back to them.
I think it's yeah. I was just going to say, go on. Go on. What were you going to say?
No, you first.
I was going to say I really wanted to touch on the other endings that we had, because
I did too.
Yeah. Go on.
Maybe you can continue with that. I have more
Sure.
stuff to share, but you first.
So we had the ending planned originally where Bad Cop would seize the Borealis and he would run to secure it on the command of the advisor, and then he would fall because the ship would disappear underneath him. That was the first sort of ending we played with. We never actually built that, I don't think. We got close to it because, like the guys said, we then added the Zen grenade where Bad Cop would basically be like teleporting himself to Zen, and then he would be stranded on Zen. That eventually evolved into being stranded on Zen and meeting the G-Man. And then we changed the story up a bit, I think, We sort
I-
of went back and we did a whole lot of work, didn't we, on Badcop and his character.
I remember suggesting like an alternate ending, which kind of helped. I think like kind of led to a lot of that. Do you remember like this was whenever we were still like focusing, the host narrative was still going to be a thing, but you remember like I suggested there could be like a crazy like third option after like fighting Clone Cup where you like end up like joining him because you're like
Yeah, I remember that.
I think the idea is that like you get your host buddy like gets into a fight and you have to do like this extra secret boss battle with like easy one bad cop and then you become
Yeah, and you were like
then,
in
like,
the.
the
Was
code
that where you were
section.
like in the mind? It was all like.
Yeah exactly
Yeah, I
and
remember
then
that.
like and then you actually like team up with Clone Cop and he becomes like a companion for a while.
It would have been cool if we had given players that. You know, if the story had played out in that way. Unfortunately, Clone Cop died
Yeah.
horribly underneath a crate, or you shot him
Yeah.
in the face. But yeah,
It becomes paste.
Now there's G-Man doing the Peter Griffin pose.
here's G-Man doing the ball squid. That was when I didn't put in
Bull
the.
Squid killed it, G-Man?
Yeah, I didn't put the AI relationship in.
Oh, no.
That was the other ending.
One idea I wanted to touch on really quickly is how at one point in time I remember at the site of the Borealis, I think after Clone Cop died, I don't remember the exact sequence of events because this was still kind of like on paper. It was before you actually built the map. So on paper, you had this idea where Bad Cop was going to confer with the advisors and actually suggest the idea of destroying the Citadel in order to get enough energy to send the message back.
That's amazing
the
you remember
overworld.
that. I completely forgot that. Yeah, we were going to do that thing, weren't we, where it was all Bad Cop's idea.
I think there's something kind of cool about that, where it like ties back into episode 1. It really speaks to the older version of the character. I think when he was less sympathetic,
Yeah.
you know, there wasn't really meant to be a resolution to his arc there. I don't think where it's like his backstory. You know, it's less about resolving that and more about him overcoming that mission where he gets to be the one who goes to the advisors and says, well, I think you should just use the Citadel core to blow it up and send the message back and get enough power that way. And they're like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. And they blow up the Citadel and you see that in episode 1.
I love that they just were like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea, but it doesn't like, to me, it's very inferior to what's in the game
Oh, yeah,
by
yeah,
a lot. You know, it's more
definitely.
focused on him as a character, and he actually goes through some kind of development and learns, and I think that makes the story a lot better.
Definitely. I totally agree on that one. I think, so the other ending that we did, I'm just going to put this image up right now. There it is.
It's going to be a lot to
Let me,
talk about with that ending.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm going to fit that. Right. Okay.
We only have 23 minutes left in our planned time.
That's right, let me put you guys back. I think it's all right. I mean, how are you guys doing for time? Are you right to just...
Oh, I can stay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
I'm good until like 10 p.m. Eastern, so that's way longer than you're gonna.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm having fun. I think, you know, we should, if we can go, we can go. Although I do need to step away for 2 minutes because my rabbit is getting crazy and I need to like let him out. Just,
worries.
if you guys just want to talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Yeah.
Sound like a fucking teacher. I'll be back in a sec.
I don't want to launch into the next topic without Breadman, but I know that the thing that we're going to talk about is going to be the ending, the first version of the ending that was actually built. And I don't even know where to start with it, to be honest. It went through a lot of changes. I think it's interesting what parts of that ending persisted. Like that was a piece of trivia I wanted to share earlier about the endgame weapon, the Zen grenade that you use to teleport yourself to Zen. That whole Zen section was built for the original ending. And the reason why there's such a detailed Zen map when you, if you get the sort of hidden ending where you kick the G-Man and it kills you, there's a really detailed Zen section that you only see if you kick the G-Man. And the reason that's there is because that was originally built to be the place where you meet the G-Man. That was like the whole start to that ending. But because the ending changed, we had that entire detailed Zen map to use, so we recycled that into being where the G-Man takes you to meet a Gnome if you decide to try to kick him.
Yeah, because originally we were like, oh, we should disable the kick so that the player can't hurt G-Man, and it's like, nah, let's have him be able to kick the G-Man and actually have repercussions for that.
Yeah,
I was
and a lot of
really
people
excited
did
about
too.
that idea.
A lot of people did kick him, so I think it was a good shout.
I really like the idea of not taking control away from the player. I mean, to some extent, you always need to. Like, there's always going to be scenes where you lose your weapons or you're restrained or whatever. But I just felt very strongly that, like, if throughout the entire game we never prevented you from kicking, suddenly having you not be able to kick when the story requires it felt like kind of a cop out. Like it's betraying the design or the trust of the player that you can always hit the kick key and always kick at any point in the game. So it's like, why not then? And I liked turning it into from oh, you just can't, into you can, and then obviously that's a bad idea to do that, and it shows you that visually. I like that a lot. I'm changing my answer for thing I'm most proud of in Entropy 02. Most proud of kicking the G-Man.
I'm back.
Kicking
the G-Man.
Up until the end, I was trying to get it in that if you kick the G-Man, you just get a very short but cut off, like for when you land it.
That just reminds me of that fucking Eli sound. Sorry, I'm back now. The rabbit is sated.
Yeah, it's all right.
Rabbit is sated.
I had to give him a carrot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you actually give him a carrot?
I gave him a piece of a carrot. Yeah, he's the new what am I saying? Mascot developer, I suppose. He's basically attached to me at the minute. So, yeah. Anyway, where were we? So yeah, we
were just talking about the original ending. The first one that was, when I say original, that's kind of a loaded term. I mean the first ending that was actually built and playable.
Ah, right.
And I was talking about how parts of that ending got recycled into the outcome if you kick the G-Man.
Yeah, and I still think that was a great thing that we did. Like, because it's like we were like, okay, here's the problem with having the G-Man in an ending. What if the player kicks the G-Man? Okay, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Because we didn't just want to take the kick away, because that would be kind of, that'd be cheap, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, here's the G-Man, but you're pressing the key, but nothing's happening. How fucking boring is that?
That was something that was kind of dangerous about the kick when we first implemented it. Wow, we haven't even talked about the kick at all. There's so many things for us to retrospect about. So I can very briefly go into the kick.
Yeah, go for it.
The kick is a challenge because once we added it, you are always able to melee under any circumstance, which is kind of dangerous. Like in a lot of Half-Life 2 maps that I've played, the crowbar is used as kind of a gate where you can't deal any damage until you have the crowbar. But with the kick, you can always deal a little bit of damage to like break props and stuff. So we were worried, like, does the kick break chapter 3? We had to test for that and make sure you couldn't break chapter 3 with the kick.
Oh yeah.
We had to make sure that there's no other points in the game where you can do something silly with a kick that will break the game. And the G-Man was one of those.
I think, like, in chapter 3, you even made it so the Gnome hurts you. It hurts you to kick it.
If you kick, it sort of like will bleed the phytoplankton on you and deal radiation damage.
That was a good one. Yeah. And then we had the...
Why was the kick implemented? Wasn't it from like playtester feedback? Like the
very beginning of the game, Breadman used the pulse pistol as kind of a replacement for the crowbar.
Yeah.
Where you don't get a sunstick anymore to kind of show how you're promoted up from Metro Cop to a Combine Soldier. So the pulse pistol acts as your crowbar because it has unlimited ammo. But when people actually played the game, they didn't really like using a pistol as a crowbar, especially when it has like a really long delay between shots. You can't break stuff with it very quickly. It can run out of ammo and then it has to recharge. It seemed like players really wanted a true melee weapon that could only melee, but it isn't going to run out of charge, isn't going to have any delay between shots, that sort of thing. So the kick is like your version of the crowbar. Or I guess you could think of it more as like the crowbar got split into the pulse pistol and the kick, where the pulse pistol is supposed to be your backup weapon that you can always use that doesn't require ammo, and the kick is like specifically just the function of breaking boxes and props.
Yeah.
And you can do other things with it too.
Like, you know, like kicking open doors and stuff, disarming rebels, kicking globies in half. Like we kind of built on it, didn't we, as we went?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked doing that, seeing like what kind of different interactions can we have with the kick. One of the spicy ones is disarming rebels. That really started with rebels who were afraid of you could go into a panic and drop their weapons. But then we added with the kick can knock their weapons out of their hands. When I first implemented that, I did think I wanted it to be you have to land the kick directly on the weapon for it to work, but then we ended up just making it anytime you kick a rebel, it takes their weapon away.
It kind of just reminded me of something else we haven't spoken about. We haven't talked about arresting rebels either. We haven't actually touched on that.
And that was another one of those kind of like emergent designs
another
where
rabbit hole where it kind of led down that path, didn't it?
Yeah. I think I can summarize it pretty quickly. I was playing a map and I realized if a rebel panics and they're running around and you press E on them, nothing would happen. And I just felt like as a player, that's not quite right. Like if you press E on them, it should interact. I didn't know exactly what kind of interaction, but it should interact. And so I thought about that and I thought like, what would Bad Cop do if he tried to interact with a rebel? It's like, oh, well, he would maybe, tell them to get on the ground. He would maybe interrogate them, that sort of thing. Like that's what the kind of interactions that he would have with them would be. So I made a very rough prototype of the arrest mechanic that didn't work very well, and then Blixabon turned it into a full behavior with lots of configuration properties and different ways that we could tweak it and fine-tune it.
Yeah.
New animations and everything. And it kind of so I guess that is
I know what you're thinking.
It's textbook scope creep in a way, because it went from I just wanted something to happen when you press E to a whole new behavior. So I admit that is a literal scope creep, but I'm glad that happened because it was a fun outcome for us. It turned into something that was a lot more than what we expected. So sometimes it's okay.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wicked. So.
Oh no! I
What's
see
up?
someone in the chat asks what happened with the displacement pistol.
Oh shit!
We're gonna need another section for that. Let's keep talking about the ending.
Well, let me. Right, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a minute as a separate, because I know I get a lot of questions about that. Actually, people are always asking me about that weapon. So this ending, we came to the conclusion that the G-Man had to be involved, but we didn't want to follow the cliche that the G-Man would hire Bad Cop, because that happens all the time, and that's kind of like a very G-Man thing to do. But we kind of wanted to deviate from that. So it annoys me that I can't remember the dialogue. I can't remember what we wrote for him to say. But basically, he take you from Zen, I think? So you would get stranded on Zen, and he would take you back to Arizona, which would be, that's Bad Cop, where he lives, whatever. And there would be this grave in the desert, and then he would say something to you. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then he would just tell you to dig, and he would disappear, and then a spade would drop out of the sky and land in the grave. And that was it.
Yeah.
We just ended it on that.
It was a really chilling ending. I liked, because I know the spade appeared, fell into the grave, and then the screen cut to black, and you would just hear the G-Man say, "Dig," right in your ear.
Yeah.
I can't act that line, but
right in your ear holes.
CW made it absolutely chilling.
Yes, he did.
Like,
Actually.
diggy. Oh. But it really. It was a really sort of creepy, grotesque ending, having it end on that note with the voice right in your ear and everything, and then it goes to the credits.
And I think we kind of... I remember when I was drafting it, it was like... It was supposed to be... Because we had this whole thing like, okay, is Bad Cop ever going to get what he wants? That was back in the early day. It was that kind of discussion, wasn't it? Like, is he going to find out what happened to Ava? And then we did this kind of really dark ending, but I seem to remember in my draft notes, I was like... Maybe he digs up an AR2 or something, and it's like, oh, this is just the G-Man's weird way of saying you're not done yet, or like,
I think,
or is
did I suggest that?
I can't remember.
I remember sending that to you. That would be the follow up would be you start at the gravesite and you dig it up and it's actually the AR2
Digs
there.
up Gnome Chomsky.
It's a gun. Oh, fuck. It's a gun.
Someone in chat asks a very good question. Why can't we just play these maps? We probably should have prepared that because that would have been pretty cool if we could just bring these up. We don't really have the compiled versions of the maps on hand.
I mean, even the lines must still be in there though somewhere. Like the dig line is in there, I think. Dig, Mr. Walker. I think that's
somebody in chat says, I imagine G-Man just deeply inhaling and then quietly saying dig. And that's exactly what it was. It was literally.
Yeah. See, I mean,
perfectly
CW
like
nailed
that.
it, didn't he? He like absolutely nailed it. It was chilling. Yeah. And
I think the reason you rewrote this whole ending was because it felt so morbid. You wanted some kind of hope in the end. Like it's not exactly an upbeat game, but ending on that note felt too sad to you. Is that right? Is that what you would say?
Yeah, it felt too sad. And also it was annoying because it asked another question, and then so we did this really good thing in Entropy 02 where we would ask questions and then we would answer them, and that was kind of philosophy I took from Half-Life 2 Episode 2, because this thing that used to drive me nuts when I was young playing Half-Life 2 was it would ask all these really interesting questions and then you would speculate online on forums and stuff, but they didn't actually like start answering those questions until like Episode 2. And that's one of the main reasons why Episode 2 is my favourite Half-Life game, is because it answered some of the questions and it kind of gave us these new things, you know, to focus our minds on. With Entropy 02, we ask a load of questions and then we kind of neatly wrap it all up in a bow at the end. And with the grave ending, we kind of said, fuck you, you're never going to know what's in that grave. And I think it would have driven me crazy as well as the players, you know. It was kind of just I don't know, I remember...
It fell flat a little bit.
It did, yeah. And it was, I remember when we built the ending and it was in, and then I said to you one up, I was like, I hate it and I want to redo it. And you were like, what? Like, we're gonna have to rewrite the ending again? And I was like, yeah.
I really liked the original ending. I much prefer the ending that we got.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
I definitely, it was one of those moments where it seemed like we had a pretty good idea of where things were heading, and then you just kind of like,
I threw a spanner.
I want to redo it. We're starting it over. It's like, what? No, like we put so much work into that. But I think it was the right call for sure, because the actual ending is much better.
Oh yeah. So like leading on to that, we had the grave ending. I hated it, and then I was like, we're going to rewrite the ending, and I think it was like 3 months where I was drafting stuff, sharing it with you guys. We would go over it. We would be like, we like this, but we don't like this. And this was like all of us, by the way. It was like we were all picking things out that rightly weren't great, you know. And then I think we just at one point we sat down and we were just like, what would happen if there were multiple endings? And I kind of really like that idea, because that kind of goes against what Half-Life 2 is. You know, Half-Life 2 is about the whole illusion of choice. We managed to sort of work into Entropy 02, like you break the illusion of choice by killing the advisor. That's like the moment that ends for Bad Cop. That's what separates Entropy 0 from Half-Life in that way. You know, that philosophy of Gordon is just on rails, even though it doesn't feel like it. He probably doesn't even realize in Half-Life 2 that he's on a rail. But he is, you know, because of G-Man and everything that he's doing. Well, Bad Cop says, fuck that, shoots the advisor in the face, you know. And starts to,
we did
you know,
have multiple endings before the rewrite of everything with the G-Man.
Well, we had the kick ending earlier. I know that's what? Come on, remind me.
The choice with the advisor came before the rewrite with the Zen and
right.
Arizona ending.
Yeah, because you had the...
Because that was a big... Well, we haven't even talked about the advisor yet. Wow. So... the idea of 2 endings, of whether or not to accept or reject having your memories replaced at the end, that came about like as you were working on Chapter 6, when the operating understanding of Chapter 6 was more like what you talked about earlier, where it was like you were going to talk to the advisors and then go on to the Borealis, and that was kind of it. That didn't feel like that was enough of a resolution to the story.
Yeah.
So we came up with this idea of the split choice, where the advisor says, "Great, you completed your mission, but now we need to get rid of your memories because you don't need them anymore, and you need to make a choice of how to react to that. Like, do you accept that?" So one of those paths leads to the G-Man ending, and the other one leads to the Combine ending. The first version of the Combine ending that you implemented, I remember there was a scene. I can't remember if this was the post credits or if this was just the whole ending. But you had a scene that was just a little like a boat, like a rowboat.
Oh yeah.
With a Combine shotgunner standing on it.
Yeah.
And you just had text on the screen that said, "The Combine have secured the ship."
And do you know
that
what
was the ending?
Do you know what Spencer made a track for that? Let me see what it was called. We put literally Spencer made a track. I was called Credits Yes.
Was that like the kazoo version of the ending thing, or was it just or was sped up? It was one of the two.
Yeah, it was called Credits Yes. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the kazoo ending. But yeah, and because I forgot about the No Unity ending that we had. We called it No Unity because it was trying to be like, the original draft of that was like, let's put like a good spin on the Combine thing. Let's like try and make it so it's positive. So it's like, oh, they're trying to unite everyone in the universe, you know, and it's not like this horrible body horror, fucking scary hive mind thing that everyone thinks it is. It's this really nice, cushy thing where your brain gets uploaded and you'll never have to worry about anything again, which I think the reality would be a lot different. But yeah, we tried that, didn't we, with the original advisor ending, and we changed it a bit. It's a lot darker in the final product. It's like Bad Cop loses his, you know, he becomes an automaton essentially. And
I looked through my old unlisted YouTube videos and I found Alpha 2.5.1 ending. I thought that was like the old version of the ending, which would be cool for us to show. Actually, it's halfway between the two endings. There was,
oh wow,
it was a gradual transition because it starts on Zen, but then it goes into your new part that you added later, right? So it was like halfway through.
Oh, it's when we
so,
were like...
so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. It's just I'm
no.
trying to find like an old footage of the original ending, and it's hard because it's like everything is kind of in those transition states. Yeah. I know I have a video that's somewhere that might be for after stream. If I can publish some of these old videos.
Yeah, that would be great. It's like, I'm so sad, like, this is like a complete tangent, but we had footage of, we were testing chapter 5, we were testing the warehouse fight and the Gonome survived, do you remember? And we were like, we're not going to kill the Gonome, we're just going to let it live and go and get Mossman and do the whole Mossman chase. And we did the whole thing with a Gonome running around, and it was terrifying. It was amazing. I never forget.
Do you know
that.
where that went?
No, I don't
think I recorded that.
Yeah, I think Blitz.
Really? Did I actually make a video of it? I'm sure, remember.
Yeah, because I'm sure you remember. Oh, maybe it was Cyan, actually. I think it might have been Cyan. I think he said he was recording. I remember it quite vividly.
Dang.
Yeah. Oh, that was so funny there. But yeah, anyway, that was a massive tangent. But yeah, so, and then, of course, the ending, we decided, okay, the grave ending didn't work for me. We spent literally months writing, and I remember being really frustrated at my desk. I think that was the one time during the development of Entropy 02 where I got really fucking frustrated, was trying to get these endings right, especially like the main sort of one with the G-Man, you know, and then we eventually settled for the whole crushing the grub. G-Man's not going to tell you what happened to Ava. He's going to play it his way because, you know, he has his agenda. Who knows what he's up to?
Well, I think that fits way better as just a narrative story as well, just like letting go. Like the whole point of Aiden's struggle is that he was taken advantage of by the Combine by this question burning in his mind, and the fact that he lets go of it in the end is the ultimate sort of
absolutely
progression of his character, I think.
One of the sort of underlying themes that we developed was, you know, it's about letting go, it's about, I suppose it's about grief in a way. He was trying to get to this magical place where you get over something like that. You know, like with grief, I think there's this fallacy with grief where you say, I'm going to get over it. But that's not actually what happens. You accept it, but you never get over it. And I think what Aidan was doing was he was trying to get over the loss of Ava. And I think he thought by maybe finding out what happened, he could get over it. But in reality, that's impossible. You'll never get over it. He just has to accept it, which was so great. How we managed
He
to
wanted
tie that in.
vindication as well, didn't he? Because he was blamed for her
That's
death.
right.
Like, even if he did prove that it wasn't him now, it's like so far in the future, only he cares at the moment.
Yeah.
He already knows that he didn't.
That's right.
So it's like, what's he trying to prove at this point?
Exactly. But I think it
I
was.
think it's interesting. Oh, sorry, you first.
I was just going to say it was important for him when he was having a conversation with the G-Man. It was important for him to realize, he knows he didn't do it, and he's not crazy. It's almost like one of those moments where it's like, I'm not crazy, I know I didn't do it, and he used that to sort of make that leap into acceptance.
Both of the two major outcomes involve him coming to a point of acceptance. It's just one of them is not really in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of interesting. It is the same resolution to his character arc. It's just there's kind of grim horror take on what his acceptance would look like if you don't fight back against the advisor.
Yeah, he was going to throw everything away, essentially, wasn't he? And that was his route to acceptance was, I'm going to forget everything. Yeah. Which is so dark when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's really yeah. We hit the nail on the head with the emoji. What did you
I'm
say?
really happy that you added post credits for both of those paths. The post credits for the Combine ending adds a lot to that ending.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it would have been not felt like a resolution. Definitely, I have a bias towards one of the two paths. I think I already made that clear.
I think a lot of people have a bias to it.
But the bad ending, if I can call it that, should still feel like an ending, even if it is the bad ending.
Yes.
And I think that you managed that, and that added a lot to the experience overall. Makes it worth going back and playing both of them.
The post-credits were so cool. So the Combine ending, if you've ever seen my Half-Life 3 trailer, or I think it was it Half-Life 3 or was it an Episode 3 trailer I did? I borrowed a lot of things from that ending, with the Combine ending, with Judith walking up the gantry towards the ship, the advisors with her. I used the Valve concept art when I was building that, which was cool. And then you have Wilson appear on the screen for a split second. I thought that was a really nice touch. Which just makes me... That's the other sad thing about that ending. Wilson would have been watching Bad Cop, and he wouldn't have been Aiden anymore. It's so sad. And then he dies.
Right.
Nathan E. makes a really good point. Removing control was a nice way to kind of say you've gone to the Combine,
100%.
you lose complete control. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah, that was completely deliberate as well. That design decision there to just have it on a puppet of an NPC, because you were not in control anymore. 100%. Very good point.
The NPC now.
You are the NPC.
Imagine if for the Combine post credits, instead of a bad cop getting the alert, Wilson just says, "Boss, I found you," and that would have been sadder.
I loved what we did though with the post credits, especially the Wilson one. I mean,
I don't mean to say that we have as bad.
No,
I was just
no way.
imagining that.
When I see the Wilson ending, I still get chills.
Same. I
To
get
this day.
I get so
Reactions to that,
excited.
great.
I'm like, what's next? What's coming next? I need to know.
Although I will say, Neocranium's version of that ending was much better than ours.
That was.
I don't think we
fucking
can live up to
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
I considered. I think.
I'm just
think
remembering it now. It's so good.
I think CW mentioned that Neo actually put up a model too, and I've actually considered looking for it and seeing if I could get it working in game,
Oh
in
my
source.
God. It's just
It's funny, when I was
oh my
reading
God.
the script for that and voicing it like when I put this in his comment section as well, it turned out exactly how it appeared in my head. Weird enough, like that in my mind's eye, it is exactly how it is.
That's amazing. It's so funny because I never thought about like Backup and Wilson becoming like a thing. Like I never thought about that until like Neo's video, and then after Neo's video, like every now and then in Easy 2, I'm like, I can't unsee it now. There's just some little interactions here and there. I just think, can you
Should
imagine?
I put a link to that video in the chat?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I think that's a good idea because
Try to get the right one.
It's insane. It's so well done. Like.
Yeah, so if anyone in chat doesn't know what we're talking about, because we just started talking about a YouTube video, there's a video that someone made that's a parody of stream highlights, I guess, for Easy 2. So be sure to check that out. Is that the right link?
Yeah.
There we go.
It's
did a really good job.
It's amazing. It's just mind-blowing. But yeah, so the Wilson ending, I always get so excited about it. I think that came together so well. I believe it was 1UP suggestion, I think. Didn't you suggest that originally, 1UP?
Yeah, I did. It felt like something was missing, because you had pretty much everything up until the post credits in, and it was just. I remember we got feedback from Kralik as well that was just saying like there's too much of a cliffhanger, and I mean I think the post credits makes it even more of a cliffhanger,
Yeah.
but in a good way. Like it didn't feel like. I feel like the post credits is necessary to really wrap up the story. Like you need to know what the last things that you saw meant, especially that the scene in the Institute. I feel like is very hard to understand, and I think that it works anyways because the visuals are so striking. Like you can visually connect the scene that takes place in the Institute to the beginning of the game, even if you don't quite know like what that might literally mean. The visual comparison there makes it work really well, but I think you need the post credits to actually kind of interpret like what's the outcome here, and the Wilson ending. I want to add to that actually that it felt like there wasn't enough payoff for Wilson before that was added. Like it really felt flat. That it's like you took him with you for the whole game. You did this amazing thing, and then nothing really happened. You got his voice lines on the bridge, but that was it. That felt like a huge letdown. So the post credits really paid off Wilson and the story by completely changing the outcome of the game and flipping the script.
And I think the thing we managed to do well with it, like you say, it was still a bigger cliffhanger. However, it's not a grave that you don't know what's in it. It gives you a good idea of the direction that the story would go if it were continued. You cut from that point on. You kind of. It's not like you're not, you don't know anything. Because, like, with the grave thing, it's so fucking, like, what's in the grave? Is it going to be Ava?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Is it a Big Mac? Is it a fucking AR2? You just have no... I mean, where does that go? He's in the middle of the desert? Like, what the fuck? Where's he going to... He's not going to hitchhike. There's nobody around, Like, but then, with the Wilson ending... Like someone in the comments said, it's kind of like a fist pump cliffhanger. It's like, yeah, it's really positive, and you kind of get a rough idea of like, you're not just left hanging. I think we did it great. I absolutely love it, and like you say, I get chills every time I see that ending. I think we just nailed it. I just remember building that, and when we got it done and the choreo was in and everything, I just remember
built it really fast.
Yeah, we did.
It was like a day, like we. I remember putting the suggestion forward and you're like, yeah, I'll try to build something for that. And then like within a few days or maybe a week or so, like I remember you had a prototype like right away. And then maybe a few days later you had a fully playable one. And then you had the voices not long after that. And it was like,
yeah,
wow, that's such a big thing to do in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when it was all done, I just remember being really, really excited to see how people would react to it. To see, having Wilson in, he got into their systems because they assimilated Arbite 3. I thought that was such a great catch. Like, that's fucking brilliant. That's such good writing. Fantastic.
One of my friends playtested Easy 2 for me, and when he got to that scene, I remember him saying, why can't I play that game? Because the post-credits scene sets up such a clear direction. It ends with Bad Cop saying, what's the plan? and it's like it's such a even if you don't see what happens next, you can kind of see that there's a direction. It's like a positive cliffhanger. It's not leaving you wondering. It's just saying like it basically the story will go on.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it such a what was the word, fist pump ending, fist pump cliffhanger as opposed to like a bad cliffhanger.
Like game sucks, I go to bed cliffhanger. So before we move on to, I think what's next is Q&A, but before we get there, there's something we haven't talked about. There are so many elements of Entropy 02 that we saw mirrored in Half-Life Alyx, and we had worked on those things before Half-Life Alyx was even a thing. Like, I'm just trying to remember them off the top of my head, right?
Antline glowy.
Glowy antlines, we had...
temporal head crab.
Yeah, temporal head crab. That was like, yeah, shadow crab.
Well, kind of in
Yeah.
a way.
The biggest
They're mostly
one
just the visuals and mechanics.
was the sort of the setup with the Gnome. Chapter
Yes.
3 of Easy 2 is just like Chapter 8 of Half-Life Alyx. Is that 8 or 7? I don't remember. Jeff. Yeah, I actually so when I played Half-Life Alyx, it was an experience. It was one of the most like the most influential gameplay that I've had in ever. It's the first big VR game. And obviously that chapter is amazing to play through. I had a great reaction to it when I played it. Like I've never felt that like immersed in a horror section before. I like almost like I had such a physical stress reaction when I was playing that it almost like hurt me a little bit. Like when I got off of the game, I remember like my shoulders hurt just from tensing up so much. Never had that experience before. But my enjoyment of that chapter was really sullied by the fact that I was playing through it and thinking, wow, I can't believe that, this thing that we built that we thought was really original and no one's ever seen it before, Valve made an official game with something like that first before we got to publish our little mod version. It really took away the celebration of it. I thought we had made something that was really original, and they beat us to it.
Well,
and obviously, like, what Valve makes is going to be a million times better than anything we could ever make. So it's like it really stole our thunder. I thought the Gnome was going to be such an original idea, and then Jeff came first.
I just remember us being like, oh my god, they're just going to say we ripped off Half-Life Alyx. Like, fuck's sake, we put all this effort in for a whole year on the Gnome, and then they're going to turn around and be like, hey, you stole that from Half-Life Alyx. God damn it. The way the Gnome works is is responsive to sound. It's like we nailed it.
And it's interesting to see like some of the differences in the design. Like it's responsive to sound, but it can still see.
It can still see.
And the main design element of Jeff is the creature being completely blind. That, in hindsight, it's like, wow, that seems really smart.
Yeah.
You're going to focus on sound, make it blind, so that you can, have a clear separation between sound and visuals.
Yes,
you can see visually, it can only hear. So that way you can see things that it can't. It's just such a good design. We never would have come up with that.
No. I'm trying to think if there is anything else, because I always think of things like, oh shit, yeah. Definitely the antlions. I suppose the G-Man ending kind of looks a little like Alyx, but that was... I reckon that was subconsciously... when you're in the dark with the G-Man? I think that was...
Was it subconscious? I thought that you were drawing pretty directly from Alyx. Because I should actually say that the newer version of the ending is one of the parts of the game that is post-Alyx and is influenced by Alyx. Chapter 3 was pretty much Chapter 3 before Alyx came out. Like, obviously we've changed it since Alyx came out with bug fixes and stuff, but like the design was made way before Alyx. But the ending was more like, I think you were working on it in the months leading up to Alyx's release, actually, kind of about the same time. And the revised version of the ending, like the ending that we have now, came like a year after Alyx, and definitely has some inspiration, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Funny story for Alyx. For me, I only played it once in VR, but my headset died, and also VR made me so sick. It made me like proper sick. I've never gotten back into it because of how ill I got playing it. But yeah, I think definitely, because it was like I played it, put the headset down, never went back to it, because my headset broke. So I guess, in the dark, like, there's this bit where you when you look around in the void with the G-Man, you can see him walking in the distance, like multiple copies of him. That was definitely inspired by Alex, 100%, because that's the first time we've seen the G-Man do that, like split off into like different copies. It just blew my mind, you know. It blew my mind that they did that with him, because that was kind of like, oh wow, he can just do that, you know. Yeah.
I think there's this symptom I've noticed about the Half-Life fandom, because the games are so old and because it's been silent for so long, we've sort of had too long to just echo the same game over and over again for so many years. When Valve comes out with a new game, they you know, it's weird to see new ideas in Half-Life because it's been stagnant for so long. And so they're a lot bolder with things than we expect. Like the way G-Man was presented and the conversation with G-Man, how he talks to Alex, it's like really kind of blew my mind. Like, you know, because we had kind of just only our limited idea of what G-Man was up until then, and then when I played that, it just kind of, it's like, wow, I didn't expect them to go there. The things he said, the visuals, everything.
A really good. Go on, Blix, go on.
I was just gonna say that, like, I'm just worried about like falling into the trap of, like, you know, where we're recycling like the same ideas from Alex, and I feel like I prefer just going in like our own, like, people going in their own unique directions, just in general.
Yeah.
You've got to be
like,
bold. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Like imagine like you know how different Half-Life Alex is from Half-Life 2, and imagine someone making a mod for Half-Life 2 that's as different from Half-Life 2 as Alex is. You know what I mean? With all of the different new ideas it plays with.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just not a lot. Like
we did that.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
We did. Yeah. We made a game. One of the things.
Someone in chat says, "Can anyone say something about the displacement pistol, please, please, please?" Later.
We could talk about that in a sec. There was something else about the G-Man that I don't know if anyone noticed it, but one of the things we did directly because of Half-Life Alyx, in Half-Life Alyx, the G-Man's eyes glow, and like we were like, shit, like that would be so cool to have his eyes glow. So I remember spending like a week trying to learn how Source Engine eye materials work to try and get the G-Man's eyes to glow. And somewhere, I don't know where they are, I have these terrifying photos, like screenshots of the G-Man with like one eye, or one eye is black and one eye is completely like bright white. And then there's another picture of his eye where it's like thousands of irises like across the... It's just really spooky.
Wait, you said one eye is bright white and the other eye is
completely black. Yeah.
G-Man is Sam's Undertale?
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I've still got those screenshots, but if I do, they're probably buried somewhere. But let me see, is this one? No. But we ended up... somehow I managed to make his eyes look really glassy in Source. I can't quite remember how I did it, but what was really good was if you pointed a projected texture at him, they would basically light up like a Christmas tree, which is why and how we managed to achieve that effect in the void. When he's talking to you, his eyes look like they're glowing, but they're not. They're just picking up from the projected texture, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, that was something we did pull from Alex, because I really wanted that. I thought it was a really unique feature of the G-Man. Anyhow.
Another idea from Alex is the Vortigaunt mural. That was a pretty direct inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
And I also...
So cool. That was such a cool idea. I loved that.
There's other elements of the ending, though, that I think were inspired by Alex. Like the ultimate outcome of what happens in the Institute is a pretty direct Half-Life Alyx reference. I think that's the only time where it's a literal reference to Alex.
We built like a Combine Henry Hoover, didn't we? And we just parked it above the Institute and just pulled him right out of there. That was definitely inspired by Half-Life Alyx. I felt like that kind of it kind of gave us an out, didn't it? It was like, hey, we could do this.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of stunned by the Combine Henry Hoover.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Is that canon now? That's what it looks like?
That's what it looks like. It's just big Henry Hoover. They assimilated him. Yeah. Definitely. That definitely had an impact on that ending. I think we should probably talk about the displacement pistol, because we said we would talk about it, and then we probably get into Q&A. Does that sound good for everyone?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
I'll stay
I
until
thought there was one
12:30.
more thing on your agenda besides that. Let me quick back at your agenda. So you had so you didn't talk. We didn't talk about the iterative peer review. We talked about that a little bit at the
kind of
beginning.
talked about
I think
that
you probably
earlier,
want to
didn't
skip over that. And then the Q&A, and then there was a very special thing that you wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Might come after the Q&A.
Yeah, come on after the Q&A. I'll do that very last thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Q&A. Let's do Q&A. Send us your comments, your questions. I mean.
So there was one question that I saved from earlier because someone said that they were going to go, but they were hoping we could get back to them. So, by the way, chat, type all your questions while we're answering this one.
I think let's try and get as many as we can. Yeah, go for it.
So the first one is, what short and sweet advice would you give to a developer in the midst of developing an ambitious source mod?
I would go on. You go first. One up.
Oh no!
I thought you were going to say it's a...
Yeah, I thought I was too, but then you said that. Now I lost it. No, I think I know what I want to say. I would try to rein in your ambitions as much as you can.
Yeah.
Try to focus on what it is that you actually want to make, and focus on the core elements first, because it's really easy to get lost in doing too many things, and you can sort of overwhelm yourself with too many ideas, too many things that you want to accomplish. Start focusing on what's the core of what you really want to do, and build something about that, and try to make it as small as possible. And then once you have it working and you can send it to people and say, hey, can you play this thing, add on to it and expand it out. Because if you try to make everything all at once, it can be overwhelming, especially for mod productions where you're probably doing it in your free time, and it's very limited with how much you can do. So I would say try to control your ambitions. It's not to say don't be ambitious, quite the opposite. It's focus on what the most important things are first.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that because that's a really good question. The thing that enabled me to build Entropy 01 was a philosophy I adopted at the very start of development. I said, I'm only going to design features that I know that I can achieve. And that was the same for the story and for the maps and everything. It was my actual design brief and all my plans for Entropy 01. I had the confidence that I knew how, for example, I knew how to do level transitions. Okay, Entropy 02 is going to have more than one map. It was things like that, as granular as that, when I was just starting out. And by keeping the plans at least achievable, I knew that I would end up with something. If of course you have to do the due diligence and you have to put the hours in and you have to be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to sit down and do the work. But at least I knew that what I was working towards was achievable, within my own ability. And then what I did on the back of that was, when I'd made progress in the mod and I had achieved some things, like with the AR2 in Entropy 01, I was okay, I'm going to push the envelope now and do something I've never done. I wanted the prototype AR2 in Entropy 01, so I was I've built the maps, I've got all this stuff going, let me see if I can achieve something I've never done before. And I learned that just by sort of gently pushing forward like that, I was able to sort of reach those ambitious areas, the ambitious ideas that I had before I condensed my draft and my plans down into something that fits my skill set. So, yeah.
Do you have any more screenshots to put up? I'm just wondering because I just see the snowfall background.
Yeah, I just put the snow on. I think. If you keep.
I think we are a little bit of a podcast.
I think we are a little bit of a podcast, Jamie.
Oh, what would have been good if we had a little bit of foresight or whatever? Just grab a whole bunch of fan art and had that.
Yeah,
that would
be cool.
idea.
Fan art. Maybe for our next stream, we can come up with maybe some gameplay reels or something too to put on
that
the
would be a good idea. I'm just looking.
Anyways,
yeah.
More questions. Conceptual S. Will we see HLA pulse weapons like the Pulse SMG and Pulse shotgun? Well. Kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
So, I actually do want to answer that. So, I've been doing some experiments. We've been doing some experiments with new weapons that you might see in some shape or form eventually. So there's one that is in the updated builds that you can play. I don't want to go into too many specifics about that yet. I'll hold those comments. But yeah, we've experimented with more pulse weapons because that's something we're interested in the future.
Absolutely.
Breadman, do you plan? Oh, so this is from Witsbold. Breadman, do you plan to make the sequel of Easy 2 as a DLC or a full-fledged third part? Answer that yet?
I'm not going to say anything on that yet.
Not gonna say anything on that. Oopsie Daisy asks, I've seen some of you guys in the Flat 2 VR Discord and the HL2 VR channel. Is there anything to discuss about an Easy 2 VR? It would be amazing with the features made for HL2 VR. Actually, I think I can answer that. So I did talk to the HL2 VR team. I haven't really been around in the Flat 2 VR Discord much. It was something that I was very interested in, potentially creating like an easy VR. But there isn't any progress on that front. That's on my side, honestly. It's something that I haven't been able to dedicate the time for. I'm very interested in it. I would like to see. I think it would probably start with an Entropy 01 VR because that would be closer to Half-Life 2 and easier to make. Things like the kick in Easy 2 would raise a lot of questions of like how do you do a kick in VR? I have an idea, but like there'd be a lot of development that would go into that. Even making like any VR, any non-VR mod into a VR experience is going to involve a whole lot of work and testing. Because if it wasn't designed for VR, there's a lot of elements of VR that it wasn't designed for and it won't handle very well. So it would be a ton of work, but I'm very interested in it. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah.
Next question from Frost. Entropy 03 Next question from Jason the Vampire. I'm sorry, Frost. Yeah, we're not ready. We're not going to answer that just yet. Jason the Vampire asks, were there more things planned for Wilson and Bad Cop's friendship in terms of dialogue or development that was cut for time?
I guess there's like some Wilson dialogue around the end that we
yeah,
like in chapter, like especially like because of the way that we wrote it, like Wilson get like a lot of there's some dialogue in chapter 5 that we didn't get to in terms of like Wilson commenting on stuff like for the like hacked turret lab and stuff. There were some. I don't think this reached a wider discussion because by the time this was written, it was kind of like too late. We were already kind of working on a dialogue, but Wilson there was a scene written where Wilson was gonna comment on the hacked turrets, saying something like, "Wait, are they reverse engineering our turrets? Wait, no, that's illegal in 48 states." And then backup says, "How evil of them."
Man, there was this whole scene that it just involved this building sexual tension between the two of them. That we just cut for time.
Yeah. This can we later allowed Neocranium to should be the first announcement of this scene.
Oh boy, I hope that didn't involve a fully modeled USB port. Good God.
So, Conscious XP asks 3 questions. Why weren't the alien grunts, hound eyes, and controllers added as the first one? And I want to speak to that a little bit. I mean, the simple answer is because they weren't needed. I think Breadman was more interested in bull squids and less interested in hound eyes. We never had a place in the game where we were like, yeah, we need hound eyes here.
Yeah.
And the Pitrones kind of came about accidentally. So the Pitrones kind of, I guess, take the role of hound eyes as being the more like hack-oriented aliens. Hound eyes are interesting to me. I think we could have experimented with them, but there was never a time when we needed them. Go ahead, Breadman.
I was just going to say I would have loved to have seen hound eyes, I think, now in hindsight, but I do remember the conversation when we were like, pit drones or hound eyes, and I was like, I really love the pit drones. It was like, I felt like a kid in the candy store.
I remember, maybe this is a faulty memory, but I feel like you just didn't really like hound eyes. It's like, oh, should we do hound? No.
No, was it like that? Was it? Oh, I don't know.
I don't think it was. I think that's me misremembering.
Hound eyes.
Because it was more of like having different options, and you picked what you thought we could use.
I think. I mean, I think. Oh, do you know? Sorry, we never talked about the displacer pistol. But anyway.
Yeah, well, let's add that in as a question
Yeah.
after a couple more questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, that I think retrospectively, I would love to have seen what you guys could have done with Hound Eyes. Yeah, that could have been great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I'd like to see in other mods in the future. 'Cause
Yeah.
we've seen Bull Squids a lot lately. I haven't really seen like a revival of Hound Eyes or what Hound Eyes can be, what they can do, and their sonic attack would be perfect for this physics engine and Source. So I think that could be really interesting.
It's worth mentioning MapLabs has a Hound Eye NPC now with a pretty well programmed AI.
Well, what do you know?
Actually, the EZ2 SDK does as well, but with no assets. It has a Hound Eye. It hasn't been tested very thoroughly, so I can't say it's implemented as well as the MapLabs one, but it is available for mappers, if you're making a mod.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak to alien grunts and controllers because they were considered at one point. There wasn't a specific place for them, but I had talked about adding them from human error. And I think the reason why we shied away from that a little bit is because we didn't want the mod to feel too derivative of human error. It's human error was kind of the original Combine mod, and it's big shoes to fill. And Entropy Zero was always supposed to have its own distinct identity. I think personally, I would have liked to have seen us use more code from human error because a lot of it is available for mods to use, and it's really good stuff. But we tried to go for more like original designs. And we, like I said, we didn't have a specific place for them, so we're not going to make an original design for those. So that's why that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Can you make a tutorial on how to do the advisor voice? I know there's tutorials on how to do different Combine voices that are somewhat like the... Is there one for the current Bad Cop vocoder?
I'll answer on this a bit. So the advisor voice as it currently stands is a bit of a collaboration between myself and CW3D. I know how to do my end of the collaboration. I don't know how he does his end of the collaboration is the thing. It's a bit of a mess. There's multiple parts. It involves a similar method to how Bad Cop's vocoder is done, i.e. FL Studio, vocodex. You take a noise sample, you use it as a carrier in vocodex, except I took the advisor noises from like episode 1 and 2 or something like that. Like it makes some weird
God, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I took those and I vocoded them in 2 different ways so that you get like a part 1 and a part 2 of the same voice line. And then I send those to CW, and then he does some magic, and that's how you get the advisor voice. I don't know what... It's a really weird, complex process that it's not... But here's the thing, like, before this meeting started, we started a little casual brainstorming about, if we were to change the advisor voice, what would we change it to? Because we think it could be done better. So, maybe very whip. In the future, we might change the advisor to sound better and take advantage of the stereo and all that sorts of thing. I've sent Spencer all of the advisor lines to play with. Whether anything will come of that, don't know. It's literally it was just a very casual, hey, let's fuck around with the advisor and see if we can make
fuck around with the advisor and find out.
Yeah, you guys were just working on that voice filter right before the stream.
Yeah.
It sounds really cool what he was coming up with. So I'm kind of hopeful that we'll get a better advisor voice, because he's hard to hear as well. I think he's supposed to be a voice inside your head, and sometimes even I have to read the subtitles.
Yeah.
The one who did the lines.
That's something that I'm really interested in for all of the different voices that we have, is trying to make them more comprehensible. It's a piece of feedback I've seen. It's that everyone needs to turn on subtitles because you can't hear what Bad Cop is saying, and it's really tough with the effects for him to sound like Bad Cop, but also to be understandable. The advisor is very hard to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing around sort of recently with Bad Cop vocoding stuff, trying to make him sound clearer while still sounding like himself.
Yeah.
There's still some work to be done there. I don't know. As for like, if that question was extended to like the Bad Cop vocoder, there is a tutorial on how to do that in our Discord. It's pinned in general, I think. Basically, you need FL Studio. You need to have the vocodex plugin for FL Studio. You need to have a vague idea of how to use FL Studio. Yeah, like when I was doing the thing in FL Studio, I had to have a friend come round and basically show me how to use it a bit, because I was like, oh, I need to make this carrier in vocodex. How the hell do I do that? And he was like, oh, biff boff bam, that's how you do it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna save this and never change it. So I can't quite remember how to do that sort of stuff. And it's all based on a tutorial from, I think it's Barian on YouTube. I think that's his name, because he did a video called Steamed Hams, but it's during the Half-Life 2 beta or something like that, and he just vocoded Steamed Hams with the Half-Life 2 beta vocoder. Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, he put a tutorial in the comments or something about how he did it, and I was like, oh shit. So I grabbed that, and that's how I know how to do it. And I've credited him. I've put his tutorial. It's all in the Discord. Go find it pinned, and if you can do it, go ahead and do it.
Nice.
Lost my place on the questions. There's a lot of them. Oh boy. Oh no.
I'm gonna take a quick look to see if there's any I can answer, because I'm on a skedaddle.
Yeah, there's so many questions. Oh my goodness. I'm like so far behind in the chat. Breadman, real quick. Were you ever working on an episode 3 mod regarding the Half-Life 3 trailer? Question from
was it ever a mod?
Dimitron? Yeah, basically, was it ever a mod?
It was never a mod. It was literally all built for that trailer.
Interesting. Yep. I thought you shared some maps with me that were like related to the trailer. Were those separate or for Entropy?
Yeah,
or
they
were
they? Yeah, I think I remember those. They were basically going to be included in the trailer, but I just ended up not using them. Yeah.
Did you reuse anything from that trailer for Easy 2?
No, it was all Easy 2 was all built from scratch.
All right.
So the only thing
question.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing.
You...
Go on, you just go.
No, I interrupted.
I was going to say the only thing really that I took from the trailer was that the conceptual idea at the end of seeing Judith walking up the gantry towards the Borealis. That was what I conceptualized that at the end of Easy 2, but none of that geometry made it in Entropy 02.
There's one of those 3 questions I mentioned, the very first ones. Oh boy, we've got a lot of questions. What were the original plans for Clone Cop? I want to keep this kind of brief because we could do a whole video on that, but I think it might be worth mentioning how his character changed a little bit.
Yeah, like, I mean, I even remember when Clone Cop wasn't a thing, and the game didn't have a proper antagonist. It was just go and get Judith. I mean, I'm like watering down a lot here, but we were basically like, the game needs an antagonist, and we were like, well, the Combine have put you in one body, like, who's to say they can't have like put you in another? And then we were like,
Yeah, I found the original like message from like whenever you shared it like for the first time.
Really?
Your chat. I linked it in voice chat, the voice chat channel that we have on Discord.
Let me see.
The first recorded lines for Clone Cop, the conversation was so completely different from how his character is in the final game. I think just like Bad Cop used to be more of an edgy character, Clone Cop used to be more of an edgy character too.
Yep.
And if I had to summarize, because I want to keep this really brief because I know we've got like a million questions to answer, but if I had to summarize the original Clone Cop, it was almost like they were Bad Cop and Clone Cop were more in alignment with each other.
Yeah.
But they both wanted the Combine's attention. They thought there could only be one of them. There wasn't really any evidence that there could only be one of them, but just their personality. Yeah. They're like, hey,
there's only one room for one badass on this ice cube.
That was an actual line from the game.
I absolutely love that.
There's only room for one badass on this ice cube.
I never forget that shit. Who wrote that?
I think it embodies who he used to be really well.
Yeah, I don't even need to say any more than that. It was
just an entirely selfish motivation.
Yeah.
They both wanted to be the big boy.
That's right.
For the Combine. And they were like, oh, we're going to have to kill each other so that we don't have to compete
yeah.
to be the best boy.
I am so glad that the game went through so many rewrites.
Yeah, I remember. 'Cause
Ano-
do you remember we had this scene planned in chapter 4 where you would find his APC and you would like blow it up to slow him down, and it would be like this really spiteful thing, like fuck him.
I don't even remember that.
We're gonna get ahead of him.
Because it ends
Oh
up
my
being the
God.
other way around.
Yes, yeah.
I did want to mention one thing that I'm kind of pleased about with Chapter 3 and Clone Cop's introduction is earlier on in development, I always felt like there was no reason why Clone Cop wouldn't just kill you right away.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess he tries to, and his explosives aren't powerful enough, and it just drops you into the basement. But he does say that he's going to drop you into the basement, so it's like, why not just put the explosives directly above you or something? Like, it was kind of silly. But like in the final game, I feel like he has a very well, thought out motivation for why he keeps you alive. He actually doesn't want to kill you at that point. He still thinks that he can convince you.
Yes.
Which is also why he monologues all the time and leaves these recording boxes around. He's sort of like engineered Chapter 3 for you as like a test, and I think that makes it way cooler than
Yeah.
Absolutely.
the villain
Oh,
just
so much better.
tells you his evil plan and then leaves you alive for no reason.
Yeah. I just can't get over that line. I can't believe we had that. Do you remember the logic in that scene? It actually selected one of 3 lines.
Yep.
Like, it did it
Why did you
randomly.
do that?
I have no idea.
You just picked one line and then you
Picked
you
it.
made it randomized between 3
I was
options.
like-
It's a cool idea.
I know, but it was it's just like
so random.
You would get that fucking line. Fucking hell. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
I want to keep it
Yeah,
going.
keep moving,
What are
keep
your
moving.
thoughts on
Before you
Uprising?
continue, I'm just gonna say goodbye and skedaddle skadoodle because I don't think there
Oh,
are
I'm
any
sorry.
questions for me to answer anyway. I've like scrolled through them, so I'm
Sure.
done here for now. I will hopefully be here on the next stream though, and
Yeah,
hopefully
it
we'll have
was-
CW3D to give his input on Wilson and related things.
Yeah.
It was great to
So-
have
We
you
should do
here.
a whole stream about that, to be honest.
I think,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
we could,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye, chat.
See you,
Thanks so
Trilly.
much for joining us.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
Yeah, so, next question, I guess.
What are your thoughts on Uprising? So I was hoping to talk about this a little bit. I love Uprising. Now, full disclosure, I have playtested for them for a long time. I think before EZ2 came out, actually, by a lot. They've been working on Uprising for a long time. So I've always given my feedback on it and love it. I especially just playing through the released version of Uprising Episode 1. It's so good. It definitely like up there in quality, with the best mods. I especially like the story, and I like the different endings that they've done. I think there's not many mods that manage to have a solid story through the whole mod, and Uprising delivers on that. It has voiced characters, it has actual development to it, and I just think it's a mod everyone should play. Also, I'm really happy that we ended up being able to link with Uprising by having Beck show up in Chapter 0.
Yeah.
Of course, he's only ever called 28 in EZ2, and that's actually because his lines were written before it was decided for him to be Beck. In fact, 28 comes from EZ2, not from EZU. I remember sending the EZ2 developers a message that says, "Hey, can you give Beck a number? And can his number start with the digits 28?" They were like, "What?" And I was like, "Can you do that?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." And that's
Yeah,
how
I
that
remember
happened.
We'll just call him 20? Yeah. That's
No, but
brilliant,
it's been great. I'm so proud of their team. Like everything that they've done, it's
Same.
so good, and it's great that we can just have more mods like Entropy 0 coming out without us having to develop all of them. Like
Yeah.
because you might be waiting a long time between mods. Mods take a long time to make, but with another team making a really solid mod, that means you're gonna have more content more frequently. And I enjoy playing it basically. So sorry,
Yeah.
that was mostly just me gushing, but
No, it's all right.
I have only positive things to say about it.
Same here. I absolutely loved EZU. One of the things I loved the most about it was the atmosphere that they managed to build, like in the maps. I was just right there. It was so good. Like everything, lighting, sound, the mapping. It's just so good. Like I loved it. I think it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
If you were to remake EZ1, what would you change?
Oh, I would fix
From Rodan 91.
Fucking hell, I would fix so much stuff. You know that bit when you're fighting the hunter and the catwalks can just fall? Well, they wouldn't fall anymore.
Yeah,
randomly.
that makes me so mad.
I made some big...
How did you ever think that was a good idea?
I mean, I would probably make Sea Flu not hurt you. I would just make it slow you down, because again, that was a terrible idea. That was so bad. There's so many things I would change. I learned so many lessons from Entropy Zero.
Redo the AR2 puzzle in the event.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh my god.
Breadman, here's what you would do. You would put the barrel
No.
back, right? You have to put the barrel. Breadman, where's the barrel? Where did you put the barrel?
That is like the most asked question I get for the easy one now, is where is the barrel? Like, what the... I just still can't get it, obviously. Even when, like, Trivia's changes, which was so good. Like, oh my god. Like, what the hell? But yeah, there are so many things I would change about Easy 1. I thought about doing it before, but I've thought about going back. But the problem is, when I last played Easy 1, it was a couple of years ago now, I just don't think it would feel the same, you know? Like, I would have to have, like, the old build, like, in a branch so that anyone... You could switch back to it. Because, I don't know if it's just a nostalgic thing. Like, Easy 1, when I play it, I'm just taken back to, like, 2015 and 2016, and it's just... It's kind of rough around the edges, and it's kind of... I don't know. I like it like it is. So, yeah.
How many work hours total do y'all think it took? Asks Ben Cooper, and I don't want to know. Way too many. It's interesting because actually I think there's something interesting behind that question, because work hours kind of like misrepresents like how I at least went about development. Like, because it was something that I do in my free time, it's like it's not the same as like a work hour that I do for a job.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I'll be working on Easy 2 while I'm doing something else, you know, watching something, chatting with people. You know, it's very casual because it's what I do for fun. So it's like it can't really be quantified in work hours the way a commercial project would be.
Yeah.
I can't say I did take some stats with how many messages that we passed a lot, like back and forth on the Discord. It was 111,972 messages just in general chat alone.
Holy crap.
Oh no.
That's too much word. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. Holy shit.
A lot of messages.
Yeah, I mean, so the way I did it was like, I wake up in the morning and I would go to work, and I would work for 9 hours. Then I would come home, play with my kids, make dinner, and then spend like 2 hours doing whatever on Entropy 02. And then at the weekend, some Saturdays and Sundays, I would literally start at like 7 o'clock in the morning and not finish until 11 o'clock at night. And then there are other days where I would just do a couple of hours. So it was kind of like, there was never any like, these are the hours that we work. It was kind of just as and when we had the time to do it. And we always treated it like a hobby as well. Like, it was never like, we rarely did deadlines, didn't we? Like, there was only like right towards the end when I was like, right, we need these lines for like this date. Like, we didn't really apply pressure to ourselves, because then it would stop.
I mean, we really can't, right? Like, it's all voluntary.
Exactly.
One thing that helped me was to try to think of if there did need to be deadlines, that it was deadlines as far as, well, actually, I think this is true in any context. It's better to treat deadlines collectively. Like, maybe the team needs to achieve some objective by some date if we're going to release on a reasonable amount of time. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done by a certain individual, right? It's like these are our goals, our milestones that we're like kind of projecting towards, but it's not like this person needs to have this thing done by this date. It's more of a collective effort, because it's like it is all voluntary and it's all for fun in our free time. So there's nothing like any kind of like job stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to describe that.
I was really happy with how we managed to pull off Easy 2 actually without that kind of atmosphere in the team. It was very much like, whatever. I remember taking like a break for like 2 months at one point. I don't know what year it was, but I was like, I'm burnt out. I need to have a break. And you guys were like, yeah, that's cool. So I disappeared for 2 months, and when I came back, you guys had still been going like the whole time.
Yeah.
And then you'd have days like where I would be working on it all day, then I'd be like, right, I'm going to bed. Development sucks. I go to bed, and then you guys would be like, we're going to pick up. So when I was in bed, you guys were working on it, and then when you think of it like that, it's like the game was worked 24 hours a day for some periods.
It really was.
It's crazy.
And it was cool to see the progress, how like people were working on it all the time because of time zones. It's like we would kind of be in shifts.
Yeah. Or I'd be exactly like I would be at work and I'd open my phone and there's like you doing something like one up doing something like in Hammer, and I'm like, oh man, I'm at work, I want to be, and vice versa.
It makes me feel kind of weird talking about that now, because since the release of Easy 2, I've never been able to dedicate as much time as I did back then.
Same.
It's life has been different since then, so it's like it's kind of nostalgic in a way. It's like, wow, we really did a lot.
We did. I'm the same. My life has changed a lot since last year. Yeah. Should we?
So
Yeah,
Philipad asks, how many Bad Cop clones were deployed and where? What were their fates? Also, Philipad is one of the developers of Easy U. So
Yes.
hi.
Hi.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. I don't think that was something that we ever properly established. I think at one point we were like, there could be, it was always on the table, wasn't it? That there could be other copies of him out there, but we've never like sat down and been like, oh, okay, there's this guy, there's this clone, he was sent to a fucking Denny's, I don't know. You know what I mean?
To a Denny's.
I don't know.
I think you can probably infer from the game a minimum number. Like you can figure out like, okay, they made this many and these were their fates kind of just by looking, but there could always be more. And I like to imagine that there's exactly as many as are needed for whatever workshop maps people decide to make. If you want to make a workshop map where you play as Bad Cop and you are somewhere completely different around the same time period, that can be, going to use a bad word, that can be quote unquote canon, So there could be who knows how many unaccounted for clones, but minimally probably true that Bad Cop is the last clone. Unless there's a workshop map that says otherwise, But I like to think of it in a more open-ended way. Like there could be others. There's probably not, but like there could be if there needed to be for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice the way that we wrote it like that.
There were at least 3,649 ever clones.
Can you find them? That's the question. In this picture. Anyway, next question.
Will Mossman ever appear again if EZ continues? That's an interesting question.
I can't say anything. I mean, it's
annoying,
isn't it?
It's hard to really answer that without saying anything.
Boldly answer, probably not.
Yeah. That was.
Who knows?
I like the way. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
So that's no. Have you thought about releasing old stuff from 2018 to 2021 to the workshop? That's actually a really interesting question. We didn't.
I mean.
So we've preserved all of that history, but not necessarily in a way that makes it easy for us to like drop it in. Like usually when we're working on a map, we keep the map name the same, and we have a version history We have a version history of the source file that we can look back on. We also have a version history of the published builds on Steam. So we do have all that historical data available to us, but it would take some time for us to like go through and figure out exactly which iterations we want to preserve, and then we'd have to take them and copy them out, and then they'd probably either have missing assets or they'd have assets that were updated later, and then there's the question of like, do we need to update the assets back to how they were at that point in time? I mean, you can actually currently play old builds on Steam. Builds starting from when we went to Steam up until release. We might actually be removing the old builds from Steam because it's just really confusing. Every single day we have people who try to opt into our next build and they accidentally go
They
back
go all
into
the way back.
the 2021 builds. And I get questions about that a lot. So for now, there is an option in Steam where you can look at builds from the point where we went on Steam up until release, but that might not exist in the future. And also that doesn't account for like old stuff like before we went to Steam, which is probably the juicy content.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a good question.
We might be able to do, yeah.
Spencer, what was your process for creating music? Did you play with the devs, the levels, and think about what would fit, or did you make the music first?
So it was sort of both. When we first got started, I mean, we really didn't have any maps, right? So I think Breadman just kind of gave me some general ideas on like where the story was headed and sort of some tones to go for. So I would try to make music around that. But then as development went on, there was definitely some playable levels for me to actually go through and like try to actually design music around the level. But I think for the most part, I generally just would try to go for a certain tone or feel just starting out, and then kind of build the song off of a few like little pieces that I'd create, and then just post it to you guys to see what you think.
Yeah, and some of the tracks actually changed quite a bit, didn't they? Like you reworked some of the
tracks. Yeah. There's a few tracks that weren't that I wasn't really quite happy with. One being Confrontation. That one had a really major change to it. Quite late into development. Yeah, I just didn't like how it sounded. I thought it didn't really fit the tone. Felt a little bit maybe too positive sounding, if that makes sense. So I went for like more of a darker tone for that one. And then I think the other one was the Advisor song, Remuneration.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
that one has some changes as well.
There are so many questions.
Yeah, my whole process for writing music is hard to describe. The best way I can say how I do it is I start out with a few pieces, like maybe I start out with just like a drum beat that sounds pretty cool, or a bass line that sounds pretty cool, and then I start building the track around that, and I kind of start discovering it rather than I just like have it all in my head right from the beginning. So hopefully that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah. Just on the stream, Spencer, I've got some of your artwork that you did as well.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, so that I think CW did some like Gary's Mod screenshots.
Oh yeah.
And then I took those and then created some of the Steam art banner type stuff.
Yeah, they're really cool. Hopefully OBS will actually... It seems to just be hovering on those two images at the minute, but there is more in this folder.
I've been trying to collect questions so we can ask them, and I can keep going through the chat. Let's ask one from Oob. This is another one for Spencer. Wait, is this the last question I asked? It was supposed to be, how was it working on your songs? How did you pick out the atmosphere for the songs? Did you talk to Breadman about it? I think that is a different question. So that would be more, how did you pick out the atmosphere of the songs, and did you talk with Breadman?
Yeah, so I think I kind of already touched on it a little bit, but sometimes Breadman would just have sort of the general story or tone he was going for, and then I would try to build the song around that. But then other times, I'm trying to think of some songs that I made specifically.
What about the Ruins of Nova Prospect? Because that was kind of geared towards the whole range.
Oh yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, so that was actually the first song I think ever made for Easy 2. Yeah, because I remember you were kind of talked to me a little bit before you dropped the announcement video, and you were kind of wanting something that would fit the Nova Prospect vibe, and so I came up with that, gave it to you, and then you ended up using it for the announcement trailer. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I remember that.
God, that was such a long time ago.
It's just what I was thinking. God.
I think I lost my place in the chat. Okay, there it is. There are so many freaking questions. So 5413 Terminal asks, in the pre-release trailers, Wilson mentions he is a pacifist when first meeting Bad Cop. An advisor also says Wilson's name in a line that's in the files. Was there more of Wilson's storyline planned that never happened?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So in the bad ending, I say the bad ending. In the Combine ending, where we take the control away from the player, we were going to... I have to kind of backtrack a bit here, don't I? Basically, this came from before we had the AI upload station. We didn't even talk about what happened to Wilson. Criminal. Anyway, you would end up with Wilson at the gantry with Clone Cop on the floor. He would be there in the advisor fight. Maybe the advisor would even like throw him at you. But basically at the end, when you get your mind wiped, you would be standing there as Bad Cop without control, and we sort of planned to have Wilson sort of sat there, and the advisor would go over to Wilson and be like, tell me more, as in like they're going to start interrogating Wilson. That kind of makes that ending really dark when I think about it.
I think it was. I think if I recall correctly, yeah, this was like before we, realized there wasn't enough payoff for Wilson being there.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
We decided we needed to have a more elaborate plot line, and that's how we've been blah blah. And before all of that, he was just taken to NVM, and he would be alive, and well, you wouldn't have uploaded him. He would just be there as a turret.
That's right.
I think like he says something. I think the line that we had written for him that never got voiced was something like, "Is he all right?" Or. Like, in regards to Bad Cop of Enemy, I was like, who the hell are you?
Yeah. I think we should talk more about Wilson's death in another stream when we've got CW along, because that was like
that would be great.
Yeah, that was such a huge moment when we were writing. I remember vividly when me and One Up were like, oh my god, Wilson has to die. We were both like, no, he has to die. I remember that. Yeah.
I remember thinking when Wilson kind of became a thing, and we were like, well, okay, if we're going to let the player take him along, but then it kind of came around to, well, what if there was like more story that could be developed around Wilson and Bad Cop? And I always thought that was such a really cool idea, because you give the player the choice to just leave Wilson behind.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was like so bold of us to do that. It's like One Up D said earlier. Like, if this wasn't a mod, I don't know if we would have gotten away with it. But it's such an interesting, and I think a clever thing that we did with Wilson.
So cool.
Yeah.
Sashi says, the emotional damage I suffered from Wilson's death was immense.
So sorry, Sashi. But I mean, that's what we set out to do.
It was so good. I mean, especially like the music track that CW made, because that was a CW track, right? That plays when Wilson has this sort of funeral. It's interesting. I don't want to get on a tangent. I have 100 questions to answer, but Wilson's death, it's sort of like he really does die, right? Like he comes back, but that's after the upload. So it's like it's sort of a new version of him.
That's right.
So that's a question that's been on my mind before. It's like, is he really still alive, or did the version of him that die? It's kind of a philosophical thing. Continuity of consciousness. Anyways, gonna skip to the bottom of the list. Sashi asks, is Bad Cop a tsundere? He acts like he doesn't care about Wilson, but we know the truth. I think Bad Cop speaks for himself when Wilson asks if he likes him. He's 100% tsundere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got like a whole list of questions here. Back up at the beginning, Nathan E asks, so Wilson was born out of ideas for the Gnome chase level. When did you start to formulate Wilson being a part of Aiden's arc and gaining a bit of humanity back? Was that originally a plan? let's maybe we should save that for the CW
Yeah, we
stream.
should save that.
Yeah,
Short
no, that's a
answer
really good
is that-
question.
It's-
I
short
want to at
answer
least
is that it
acknowledge the
wasn't.
question.
It's such
Like,
Yeah,
a
it
the
fun
short
wasn't
thing.
answer to this is that it was not like because Aaron's arc was like developed later on, and Wilson like kind of became a part of that over time. It wasn't be part of the original concept though. But that's the short answer. There's a lot more to that, but we
Yeah.
could answer it on another stream with CW here.
Absolutely, it would be. Yeah, we could go right in depth on that. Definitely. Yeah.
We did like a whole stream about Wilson with CW.
We should have
I
the
like the
Wilson
question
stream.
though. Yeah, the Wilson stream.
I wonder if we could
It's
get
Wilson's game
Wilson
now.
to come along to the Wilson stream. That would be crazy if we could get
Oh, it's like the
Yeah.
Bad Cop Q&A.
Can you imagine?
So Boom Donuts 999 asks, was the Hunter companion in Chapter 4 always planned to be in the game, or did you add that later in development?
Oh, he was there from the start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the original judge was here for multiple hunters following you.
yeah, and you could play fetch with them as well from the very start. that was good times. Yeah.
I do think that the extent to which he was a companion did improve a little bit, where we kind of went through. There was one point in the game where we didn't care as much if the hunter followed you all the way through Chapter 4, so we had to go back and kind of smooth it over and make sure that the hunter can make it all the way.
Can we speed up on like getting to the next question?
Yeah.
Like, next question.
White Lightning,
This is really
Twister
like running a long
Dragon
time.
says, "Hey, what was your thoughts on map-based features related to gameplay? What do you think of NPCs jumping, since it became a common thing for them to do?"
Oh, it was
Really
so
quick,
good.
jumping. I love jumping navigation. I think it makes the NPCs so much better able to navigate around. People have pointed out that the animations look a little bit silly, and they kind of do, but I think the gameplay benefits outweigh any awkwardness or unrealistic aspects of that. What do you think, Blix?
I agree. The funny thing is, I think I could we are like kind of in a position where we could theoretically make a custom jumping animation, but I have a feeling that probably would be able to do anything that would be better than what's already there. Probably look more awkward, but yeah, I think that they, like I was saying before, whenever I first answered the map-based question like that, the NPCs and the changes that map-based makes to them are like kind of my favorite experience. So yeah.
Yeah.
I have another question for you, Blix. How much effort or work was it for the Steam Deck features, UI, controllers, etc.? And is there more to come in that regard?
It was a lot of work, especially because I'm working with just Source 2014 on its own. It doesn't include all of the code changes that Valve has made to Steam since 2014. I had to figure out how to update how Source 2014 interfaces with Steam, and also use the updated API for that, which is just took a bit to figure out, and then I had to figure out how to showing the button icons in game was at first it was a difficult thing to really figure out, because I went for one really hacky method at first. By hacky I mean really sloppy and bad way of doing it at first, because I thought it was how this was done, and the other way that anyway, point being, I ended up having to redo all that, and that I had to manually add support for PNGs in Source for that. Sorry, I feel like I'm kind of explaining this a little bit in a bit of a scrambled manner, because I wasn't really prepared to answer this.
Yeah, it's okay. It's hard to answer questions on the spot.
Yeah,
I've been stumbling over my words a lot today.
One thing I will say though is that getting the getting the layouts working and stuff for the controller layouts and Steam input itself, I actually sought help from the Valve contractor who developed that support for Half-Life 2 in the first place, Joshua Ashton, who is also famous for a few other things, so you might recognize his name if you've been around in the Source community. I actually asked if I could use his controller layouts for Half-Life 2, and he gave me permission, and that's and the layouts that are in EC2 are a bit modified, so it has the buttons for kicking and detonating explosives, but I remember they're based on his work that he did, and that's why they're very diverse for the deck and controllers and stuff. So yeah, it was pretty difficult to get it working. The gamepad UI, which Joshua Ashton also created, was open sourced after I integrate all of the support for the Steam Deck. So we ended up putting it out in another update, but we ended up releasing all of it all at once. And overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how it's turned out. It's pretty good. I do feel like the Linux version of EZ2 in general does need some work in terms of like, like it uses like because Source 2013's Linux implementation is a little bit old, and so it's a little bit slow to load. The shaders are kind of use a weaker model. I've thought about figuring out how to change that. But other than that, I'm satisfied with it. Probably I don't know when we're going to reapply for Steam Deck Verified. Maybe soon, maybe after I look into improving it. But other than that, I'm satisfied with it, and there's not really any specific plans for it at the moment. But I really appreciate the question. I'm sorry if I was really scrambled with that. I just wasn't prepared to answer, and there was just a lot of different moving parts in that to try to explain.
That's
And
cool.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's complicated because there's just so much that you had to do for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you really took that on pretty much entirely yourself, and it's kind of amazing that it works. It's a complete.
You've done a
it's
really good
basically
job
a
on that.
console release for the mod.
you.
So crazy.
I'm really proud of it. It's funny because like a lot of it just is like, all right, I have a Steam Deck now, and I want to play EZ2 on it, and now I could play EZ2 on it all on my own. It feels weird. But I like developed that support all on my own, and now I can play it for myself, just on the go.
There's a related question that I'm going to skip the line with. Are you going to apply for Steam Deck Verified again? Real quick answer, yes. I'm not sure when though exactly, because I want to make sure that we're absolutely ready for Valve's review. They've got a big backlog, and we really don't want to waste any of their time. And it can also take a long time to get an answer back from them because they have to have people actually go through and test everything. So yes, we absolutely 100% will. Not sure when. We're not in a hurry, but we do want to get that green check mark. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I have like a bunch of questions, and they're all really good. How
many more should we do? Do you want to put a number on how many we do?
How about 10 more questions?
10 more questions. Yeah. So I'll just do the top 10 in this list. So sorry, chat. I don't know if we'll be able to answer any more questions after these, but I'm just going to go down my list, and we'll see where we go from there.
There will be
more streams.
Yeah, there'll be more
I
streams.
Eat Cheeseburger Studios asks, will you make any Half-Life mod that's a spin-off to Entropy Zero story or something totally unrelated? And if there was, I'll skip that one. It's an easy 3 question. But yeah, spin-off to Entropy Zero. I'm definitely interested. I think we've all sort of talked about different spin-off ideas.
Yeah.
We had this concept of what we call deployments. That would be like basically workshop maps that we felt like would expand the story. I mean, there's the bonus map that you can play in EZ2 Cold Signal that I made that's already in the game, and then there's more on the workshop that you can get. So absolutely, we've considered that. I could talk more about that, but I'm going to keep going, actually.
Yeah.
So just keep an eye on the workshop, because even if it's not from us, there's a lot of good stuff there. Given that the Wilson ending has Bad Cop taking an AR2 to break out of wherever he is, when is there going to be EZ2 Episode 1? Let's save that question for the end.
Yeah.
Witzbold, when will you release the EZ2 dev commentary? Actually, we were just talking about that. We never finished the dev commentary. We started working on it. We have a lot of text nodes, and we have a few recorded audio nodes, but we never finished it, and we kind of stopped development on it. I'd still like to release it, but I can't say anything about when.
Yeah.
You have anything to add to that?
We've all been busy, and we've been working on our own things with experimenting with like other things, and we, kind of just haven't had much opportunity or interest to go back to the developer commentary over the past most of this year.
Yeah.
So, but we do want to finish it at one point. We know how we're going to do it. It's just a matter of putting in the work and effort of writing what we want to talk about. What writing, we know but writing specifics of what we're going to talk about, getting all the materials to put in the game, things like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't it? And I think when we sat down to do it, obviously my life has changed quite a bit since we released Entropy 02. and my time is a lot more limited now than it was a year ago.
Mhm.
So when I sat down to start recording, I didn't make much headway in the time that I had. So
Yeah.
that time's kind of been consumed in other ways now. But yeah, I'd love to get back into it at some point and get it done, because it was good. It was interesting to do it.
Yeah, I got kind of burnt out. I wrote a lot of text, and I was always gonna sit down and record it, and I just never did, and we kind of
it's
lost
exactly
context
what
on
happened
it.
with me. Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Blueburb asks, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of rushing through these. I'm just like, we gotta answer these questions. Mr. Blueburb asks, how did it feel to get so much new attention from outside and inside the Half-Life community at release? My quick thoughts on that. PC Gamer had an article on EZ2, and that was just like mind-blowing to me, because I always read PC Gamer growing
Same,
up. My
yeah.
dad had a subscription, and so I went to my local bookstore and I bought I just bought 2 copies of the magazine
got it
just
as
so I
well.
can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
just
got the
just
one.
needed like that article. It's just so surreal to look at it, you know.
I'm the same. Yeah.
It still like blows my mind just seeing like how many reviews we get that are positive, or people saying positive things about the game. It's like it never really sank in. I never really internalized how much people seem to like EZ2, but it feels really good.
Yeah, it blows my mind, but it also I love it because it means that all of that work we did, it kind of validates, like when we had those really hard discussions, like about the writing and stuff, and we were like, oh my god, it's so difficult, and it's like, because it was hard going at times, it was difficult to get it right, and it was a lot of work, and it was exhausting. It kind of just validates all of that. It means we did it all for something. It paid off. Feels great.
I see chat is talking about the displacer pistol. We said we were going to talk about it. Let's actually, can we like have a dedicated section for the displacer pistol in the next stream? I know I'm being a tease, but like I just feel like we don't have time to talk about it and answer questions. I'm sorry.
I think it makes sense to do
I'm
that.
sorry. Like we could talk about that for like 20 minutes and.
It is
We're really
a big.
running out of
It
time.
is a big thing. Without saying too much, the displacer pistol is a big thing. I think it needs a proper conversation, which would work actually really well with the Wilson discussion. If
Yeah.
you think about it. So
Yeah.
I think they would go
Well-
hand in hand.
One sentence summary. We couldn't fit it into the game well enough.
Yep,
It was something
that's
we
it.
were really passionate about, but we just couldn't. And
We
I want to
just
go
couldn't put it
into
into
way
the
too
game
many
well.
details about
We
that,
could
but
leave it at
that can be for another stream. But yeah, it's something we were really excited about.
Yeah.
Mr. Blueburb again asks, what was the story with the old screenshots in some kind of foggy place with decayed trees?
Yeah, that was one of the other endings. So, yeah, that's a good point. We never talked about that. So you had the ending where the grave was in the desert, but we also played with another idea where it would be the same ending. It was the grave, but instead of being in the desert, it was in this place. I don't want to say anything. we
Did
basically,
that place have a name?
wasn't it Toxin Isle? Wasn't that where it was? I'm trying to remember.
I guess so. That's not.
We never.
That's not where I was
that.
going with that,
We-
but like, yeah, I suppose it was.
Yeah, I mean, like we never. It was just we were gonna. That was gonna kind of be part of the mystery, wasn't it? At the end.
You could see some assets in the game that show parts of what this is.
Yeah.
I think there is like actually a thing, like, is it actually in here? Yeah, and like the files you can see color correction, and like other files that kind of refer to what it is.
And I believe that area with the fog, if it's, I'm not sure if it's the same area exactly, but I think it might still be in the map for the ending. Like it was never removed from the map
Yeah,
file.
the VMF's like a lot of these like cut areas we're showing like in the ending and stuff. They're still in the VMF. You could actually like, if you know how to use Hammer, you could go into like the C64 VMF and like they're all like hidden in this group, so you could find all of them.
I'm just trying to find that actual image so I can just throw it up on the screen whilst we're yakking about it, because I have it in my folder of like a million screenshots. But yeah, carry on. I'll find it. Yeah.
Nathan E asks, there's some code with Wilson's morality with Ada and their friendship or something that you can see in the console. Was there planned to be a more ambitious thing? I believe
yeah.
that's actually... Oh, go ahead.
I can talk about that. Yeah, there was this was later into the, so this was whenever we were like adding the last few Wilson responses, and like backup and Wilson's like last responses to a game, like very late in development. And like those are whenever like backups lines for whenever Wilson dies in gameplay happen. Like like if he dies around the beginning of the game, like if you go put him through a time hazard or something, he says like, oh no, anyway. But then later he starts saying Wilson, Wilson, Wilson. That's what that variable controls. And right now I think that it's just incremented based on the map you're in. So like every time you enter a map, you'll have that value increase. Although originally I wanted to be more elaborate and actually increase as Backup and Wilson's conversations go on, and Backup like bonds with Wilson,
Yeah.
I had a specific idea of how to do that, like using like the response system, but it required like a map-based version 7 feature, which we didn't get until really late in development, and I
remember
decided.
Yeah.
I decided to just go with the quick and dirty solution because it was more stable and like less experimental, and we were kind of trying to clamp down on making things like work. So it was more so just a risk versus reward thing. But yeah, maybe I could go that at one point, like, and make it so that it increments based on the conversations they have. Like I could do that now, but I don't know. But that's the story behind what that's about, just overall.
Dimitron26 asks, and I'm sorry for rushing through these. I just want to get as many as we
can. No, I agree.
What are your thoughts on the workshop maps that people have developed for Easy 2, and do you have any plans for giving modders more tools? We're always, we're always trying to keep the game updated, add new features, that sort of thing. So you can see in our recent update stuff that we're making for ourselves that we're also, we're making it part of the public build so that anyone can use it. But what are your thoughts on the workshop maps? I love seeing workshop maps. I get so excited when somebody makes a workshop map. It's so much fun to play through. I wish there were more. It's really, of course, that's a big thing to ask for, right? Like it's a huge commitment to make a map. But every time I see somebody made a map, I get really excited. I
sometimes play workshop maps just on my Steam Deck in bed. It's a cool way of testing Steam Deck, and also
that's really cool. Yeah.
Another cool thing is that because of Steam Cloud saves, you could seamlessly play on your PC, and then it uploads a save, and you can reload that save on your deck.
That is pretty badass. That's so cool.
Yeah.
If Gordon Freeman were to encounter Wilson instead of Bad Cop, what would that interaction be like? Probably a lot more silent, but I mean, it'd probably be written as a one-sided conversation. It'd be more like Wheatley and Chell kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting duo, because it's a completely different dynamic from Bad Cop and Wilson.
I had an idea before we had like a post-credit scene with Gordon killing Bad Cop, or like implicitly. Like I had an idea for like a deployment where you play as Gordon and you meet Wilson, and Wilson asks for your help to like bring the Bad Cop back into Bad Cop or something, and Bad Cop ends up being like the kind of like just this big giant like boss fight, like the Beast in Chapter 3. You have to like avoid him like stealthily, that kind of thing.
I remember that. Yeah,
but that wouldn't really work with the post-credit scene. That's all right.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
What other questions we got?
Stukabats. What led us to add them to our mod? From Boom Donuts 999. So the Stukabats, I don't think there's like a very deep reason why. I remember wanting a flying alien. We wanted to increase our variety of different Zen aliens. We wanted it to be a little bit different, and we thought flying creature. That's about it. I mean, it was partially the availability of the model from Half-Life Source, which we later reworked. But there isn't a whole lot to it other than we wanted an alien that was different.
Yeah.
Something that could probably fly, just to separate from the land creatures.
You showed me the Stukabat. I was like, wow, that's fucking cool. Let's go.
How many more questions do we go through? Because I think that we might.
We're at 7 out of 10. Nope.
Oh, well, okay, good. You're counting.
I'm counting. Dimitron26 asks, "Are you planning on making a rebel mod template?" Real quick answer. I think you should be able to play as a rebel in EZ2. The only thing that's really like fixed for modding is the HUD. Hard to change that per map, but you can do your own view models. You can override the player footstep sounds. You can override the player's voice, obviously. So for an example of how to play as a rebel, check out Cold Signal in the game.
Yeah.
That was something that I was really excited about, was allowing you to play as a rebel in EZ2. So definitely play through Cold Signal, and hopefully it has examples on how to do all those things. Anson X10 asks, "What was your motivation for creating games where you play as the Combine?" They also say, "I love not being forced to play the underdog like in every other game."
I guess I just find the Combine really fascinating. I just loved them. I found them really interesting, the lore and everything. Back in the day, whenever I was, we were speculating on forums about Half-Life 2, it was always talking about the Combine and like what sat behind them and the advisors and everything. That was what appealed to me about them, and that's what made me want to explore and dig in a bit deeper with them.
Okay, so there's one question left on our counter, so I'm going to try to pick a good one. No, this one I'll give you for free because it's a real quick answer. Why is there a bunch of CSS weapons you can't use? You can use them. They're set up in the scripts so that you can't replace a weapon in the same slot with a CSS weapon, and it's done that way so that if an NPC has one, you can't swap to it because it doesn't have a view model set up. But that can be configured if you're making a mod or if you're making a workshop map. You can change that property so that they can be picked up.
And if you don't have any weapons in that slot to begin with, you could pick them up. So, like, if you just have backup of no weapons, you could pick any of them up.
And why are they there? They're cool. I mean, it's something.
A very an unrelated project I had to like port CSS weapons to Half-Life 2, and like it was something I wanted to use just for mods in general. Decided to experiment with putting them into Entropy 0, and that led to them being included in EZ2, and that's it. But they're cool for NPCs, and we ended up like integrating them, and it's like you could think like we integrated like the Glock as like the Arbite security pistol kind of, so you could see some rebels use it, but and you can see it in certain areas, but yeah, that's just about it.
Last question.
I'm trying to think of what's
You're trying to find
last
one.
question. There's a bunch that I want to answer. I'm like, oh shoot, what's the last question going to be? I want to answer all of these.
I thought of an interesting question that I can't remember who asked it, but I don't think we really covered it, and it was why. What was the decision making behind making Bad Cop actually voiced?
That's a good one.
Yeah, so basically in Entropy 01 he was he was a bit of a quip machine, which was sort of driven by lines that we spliced together, which CW did for me. When I was starting out with Entropy 02, I was kind of on the fence at first. I didn't know if we were gonna look at actually having the character voiced. I kind of felt a bit like it would be really hard to get a voiced protagonist because we'd need somebody dedicated, and back then it was literally myself and CW and Spencer working on the mod. It's like whoever this, if we were going to do it, it would be a lot of lines, it was like all these things that we had, but really it was Trivy who convinced me. Trivy, basically the first thing that he did was he gave me a sample of him, and it sounded great. It sounded like really, really good, and I thought if we wanted to do it, it could be convincing. And then the other thing is, sort of off the back of that, I was thinking about the story that I wanted to tell, and I was thinking really the only way to get more substance out of it and to not make it just another Entropy 01, if that makes sense, would be to have actual dialogue written by us and acted. So in the end we sort of settled with Trivy for Bad Cop. The rest is history.
All right.
I've got one more question on my list.
This is the last question.
Well, there's three that I want to answer.
Of course.
There's three questions that I want to answer. So, first one, this is more for Breadman. How did you come up with the idea for the Zen grenade?
How did we come up with the idea for the
I remember.
Zen
I remember actually. I found messages for it while looking for stuff to use in developer commentary. Um, it was basically just restoring the hopwire from episode 1 with Black Bolt.
Yeah, that's it. There's a video
And
on Mod Database. Yes, I remember now.
And I think it was actually Max, like Max Brando, our old community manager, who suggested that sometimes a Zen alien should pop up out of it.
Oh, I thought that was CW's
It
idea.
might have been. It could have been CW. I'm pretty sure it was Max. I think I looked at the
That
messages.
was
and
Max's
it was
idea.
like,
That's actually a huge change to like the way that the development went.
maybe
Yeah.
Max was more involved. Max was much more like involved in the earliest days. Can't verify that. If this is based on some messages that I found, it would take me some time to really find them again, I think. But
Yeah.
Super interesting. Yeah.
I will say that, you know, when I first heard the idea of aliens coming back out, I was skeptical but kind of curious. I didn't really like the randomness of it, but I started looking at the code for the hopwire, and I realized that it was designed to spit out a prop with the same amount of mass that it consumed, like to keep conservation of mass. That was part of Valve's design. I thought that was interesting. But I realized it's like we could take that mass calculation and use that to set like different things coming out of the Zen grenade.
Yeah.
And that's where I started getting really interested in the idea of things coming back out of it. And that sort of, for me, became its primary use rather than just a random thing that it would do. And that kind of drove the development forward for me. And Blix did a lot of work on reworking exactly what comes out of a Zen grenade based on what criteria. Maybe we could talk about that in the Wilson stream.
Recipes.
Yeah.
Grenade recipes. Yeah, brilliant.
Mhm.
Question I really wanted to ask. Cupcake asks, what's your favorite fan content?
It's so hard to answer that one.
Yeah, that's.
There's I can't remember what it's called, but there is a map and it's like an airport, a combine, like an airport thing.
Arbite Airport?
That's
Airport?
Is it literally called airport? Like
Arbite Airport.
yeah. I played that. That was wicked. I really like
I
that.
don't.
It's so hard for me to say you know what I mean? Like favorites, like it's hard.
Trying to think. Like, there's a bunch of different. People have made so much like fan content that's kind of hard to pinpoint anything specific. One thing that I really liked was some of the drawings that people have made of Backup and Clone Cop. Like, Breadman has like tweeted them before. I really liked those.
Yeah.
And there's also like some Arbite stuff created by, I think it was Remember Citadel, who created like an mock-up of an Arbite poster from the 80s, and also like a Portal 2 version of Chapter 3, which I don't think he finished. But those were like probably among my favorite fan content personally.
There's a really good one at the minute. It's the Carryable Wilson. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing that someone was able to do that. I'm surprised. And yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Spencer.
Yeah, I don't. No, I was just gonna say I don't know if it counts as fan content, but actually watching people play through the game with either like a face cam or like voice commentary,
Yeah.
I found that to be very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned this before the stream, but it's like I have this like kind of perfectionist mindset where it's made it hard for me to watch people's playthroughs now, because it's like every time like they experience something or do something in the game, it's like no, that's not perfect. We could have done it better, or like that kind of thing.
Do you know
makes
what?
it hard to watch.
I'd like to see more. Like, I'd love to see more story analysis content. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I would
Yeah.
love that.
I would.
love
to
seeing
see
like
that.
video essays and stuff like that, reviews.
Because
So good.
We've buried so much in Entropy 02, and there are so many like nuances and connections that we did in the story. Like there are videos out there, but a lot of them they don't really scratch the surface. You know, Easy 2 goes deep. You know.
Iceberg.
Yeah.
As far as playthroughs go, like recently I got to watch my friend Stashy, who was in the chat earlier, play through the whole game. And
Yeah, I watched
it's
that.
crazy to see her play it like it's like just a real game, with her style of playing. But it's a game that I worked on, and then I could also chime in and talk about like stuff from development. It's just a lot of fun to interact that way and see. It's always fun to see people play through it because we can't really experience that for ourselves since we were involved in development.
That's our curse.
So we kind of need to like see other people play it vicariously to really experience it.
It was great watching Stashy. I watched the whole thing. I didn't actually comment much on it, but I did. I watched the whole thing. It was hilarious and also fantastic. It was great.
A lot of fun. I did feel a little nervous about when Wilson, near the end of the run, what was going to happen when Wilson died. I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
I'm in some trouble here. One more question. I know I'm over questions. I promised I wouldn't do any more questions, but there's one more question that was in the chat that I thought would be good to answer. So it was from Mr. Max. It was, is Victor 60 going to encounter Bad Cop in the future? And I wanted to answer that because, I would love to do more crossover type things, but it will depend on the story, right? Like, I don't see, I'm not 100% sure where Uprising is going, but like, I don't see any possibility for the stories to ever overlap again. If they could overlap, I would overlap them, but it'll really depend on where both of the stories are going. Each story is going to prioritize itself, right? So it just depends on if there's any possibility of a crossover, but you
don't want to force it.
Yeah, we don't want to force that. But yeah, it would be great if they could. I totally agree. It'd be so nice, wouldn't it?
I see Takarish asks, how could you 1-up D? Wait, what is that? What did I do?
I think you killed
It's
Wilson.
probably delayed in the... Oh, yeah, it's because Wilson. So there's more questions, but we're gonna pack it up for now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, chat, for all the questions. It's been a lot of really good questions for us that got us thinking. I almost wish we would have done this whole thing as one giant Q&A. Didn't even think that would work. I was like, they won't have that many questions. Who has questions?
So I suppose we should very quickly touch on, we should...
Right.
Yeah. Talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so I'm just going to put something up on the screen. It's on the screen now. We're not going to say too much at all about this. Basically, we're trying something. We're going in a direction at the minute.
But we're not committed.
We're not fully committed yet. Yeah, I think that's the best way of putting it. We know, we have an idea of what happens next. It is drafted. We're quite confident in the direction. I suppose it remains to be seen if it really becomes something, but it kind of just felt unfair tonight to do this whole stream and not sort of address the elephant in the room, which is, the cliffhanger at the end of Entropy 02. So, yeah. I don't know if you guys have any input, anything you want to say?
Sure.
No,
First of all,
I'm seeing a lot of input.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm seeing a lot of input.
Yeah.
In the chat, I see people are saying goodbye. Wait, we're not quite done yet.
No, I'm seeing a lot of people talking.
Yeah.
So
we've been.
Yeah, go on.
You want me to start?
Yeah. Go
You
for
have
it.
anything to say? Okay. So we've been working on this thing. I think our apprehension about talking about it is mostly that we don't want to say we're doing this and it's going to be like this, and then it ends up being like something different. You know,
100%.
Because of the way we developed Entropy 02, which we've talked about through the whole stream.
We don't even know if we're going to finish this.
Absolutely.
We all mentioned how little time we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another thing we mentioned throughout stream is how organic the process has been of making Easy 2, and how it's not something where we treat it like a job. It's our hobby. So we can we're never sure exactly how things are going to end up. But at the present moment, we're pretty reasonably sure of this path that we're taking. We've been working on some small amounts of content for basically like an episode for Easy 2 that's going to continue the story after the end of the game.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of gameplay experiments and sort of demos and things like that to try to feel out where we think it's going.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, I think the writing doesn't lean so much on, because you know, like Entropy 02 essentially leans on episode 3. Like that's the foundations that we sort of wrote from. We don't have that
Absolutely.
now, so this will be our own direction. It's going to be quite bold. I think it's really fucking exciting. Like, I'm crazy for it. We want to
barely contain my excitement.
Yeah, it's like so cool. So we'll see what happens. But we didn't want to just be like end the stream after the Q&A and not say anything. Like we have to.
Yeah.
We wanted to throw you a bone. So here it is. There are things happening slowly. Watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot more of concrete things to say about the continuation, like when we get a little bit farther along. It's I think one of the challenges that Breadman you were talking about earlier was like our schedules are a lot different now, and so we don't really have the same kind of like pace of development that we had for Easy 2.
Yeah.
So we were approaching it a little bit differently. We're trying different like strategies for how to make things. And there's a possibility it won't work, you know, like with anything. I mean, if you learned anything from this stream, just talking about how changes Easy 2 went through, it's like, you know, we're always in flux and always learning. So we might find out that certain ideas don't work. But
and there's certainly some new challenges, you know, in these ideas that we're having. There's definitely new hurdles for us to jump, which I think's, you know, it's interesting. So yeah.
You know, I feel like we've said almost nothing about this thing.
Yeah.
There's a thing. We're making a thing.
It should say that way. I mean, like, you know, showing a screenshot is like, you know, already like making people like, you know, explode. So
We've got
what they need to
green might be
realize.
involved.
there's some green, there's some shadows.
I think I see some blue.
There's a little bit of blue there. Yeah.
What they need to realize is that it's super, super early, and there's no guarantees that it ever even releases.
Yeah.
So we're working on some stuff, but you know, just keep your expectations in check.
It is like really cool though. We have some cool redacteds, and we have some like fucking amazing redacteds, and I can't wait for the redacted. And like when we do that thing with the thing that I'm not going to talk about, and like when we go to the redacted and there is redacted, yeah, it's going to be great. As Wilson would
Want some
say,
blue?
Yeah, there's blue.
I got you, blue.
We got
I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else. One person in chat asks, what's the name of this project?
I'm not going to say yet.
Yet, are we?
That's classified.
I think we need like a cool logo.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any particular reason not to name it other than it'll be really cool if we just wait to name it until
I think we
until the right
if we
moment.
rename it
Yeah.
to something else.
We're not going to. I love this name.
Yeah,
same.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great name. Yeah.
Oh, I remembered what I was going to say. If you want to check out what we're doing, you can kind of see whatever we're actively developing through our GitHub. So I want to add a little caveat on that the way that things work in code is not necessarily exactly what it looks like at the surface. So, you know, if you do happen to see us working on something new, take it with a grain of salt, because, you know, we're not necessarily disclaiming why we're making any particular thing. Like, it might be thinking ahead to future ideas that aren't even in this episode, or we might be experimenting with something that we don't know if it's a good idea or not.
Yeah.
And also the way that programmers think about the world might be a little bit different from what's in the story. So it's like the name of something in the code is not one-to-one with how it will end up in the lore. So, you know, if you do watch us developing things on GitHub, just keep in mind it's not necessarily revealing anything about the story. You can probably get a glimpse of what we're thinking about, but it's not like it's not always what it appears.
Yeah. I think the thing to take away from this, aside from the fact that it might not happen, is I think if it all collapsed tomorrow, we would be quite comfortable in coming out and at least showing you what we had in mind. So it's not like we're not going to do a valve and just sweep it under the rug, you know. If we can't deliver on it, one way or another, you'll find out. The thing is, we know what happens next, and we know even beyond that, and it's so exciting, and I love it, and I can't wait. But I can't say anything.
I've been listening to Privy voiced a scene from mid game as like a test, just to test out like what that might sound like, and honestly, it got me kind of emotional.
Yeah,
it's just a like that's not even like the actual dialogue, but like that really like kind of gave me a lot of motivation.
Same.
To keep going.
Yeah, the tension in I know what it was so good.
Entropy Zero, the Sundari Trials, maybe.
Maybe.
Actually, that kind of fits. Somebody else asked, I just didn't see where it was. Do you need somebody said, hit me up if you need a good name. We have a good name. I'm just not allowed to say it.
We have a classified name. That's classified.
We were wondering about like maybe looking for like help with mapping in the future because of the kinds of environments that we're working on, but that would require like someone a very specific type, and like if we need that, then you'll hear about it later. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of trying to like build out the core of what we're making first, so that we can test that and just be comfortable with exactly like what is this episode going to be, and then that's when we'll start like reaching out to mappers and trying to build more of the content. That's kind of the phase we're in right now, is still like playing with demos, but we're all just really excited about it and about the story.
We're super excited. The other thing as well is, like one of these said, episode, I don't want that to like trigger people. Like we're trying to be smart about this. Obviously the episodic model didn't work for Valve, so if we're doing an episode, it will be an open and shut thing, right? It'll be like a sealed, the story isn't gonna like...
Exactly.
Yeah, we can't afford to do a Half-Life 2 episode 2, basically. We don't want to do that, so we have to be very careful how we do it, but yeah, we're quite confident.
Yeah, and sorry if I don't know, I feel like I gave away a little bit too much there.
Yeah, that's all right.
A lot of this language is kind of loaded, like when I say episode, you think about the Half-Life 2 episodes, but making it self-contained is something that we're really focusing on, so that we can pivot, at the end, so that we're not locked into one path. Even if we have a good idea where we want to go, we know that it's always an organic process. By the way, do you have a server invite link for the EZ2 Discord? I noticed someone in the chat said they wanted to join the Discord.
Yeah, it's in welcome. I can post it. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, so
Can we pin multiple messages?
Let me see.
I don't think we can.
Is it just
We don't want to unpin the survey.
I don't think you can.
Oh no,
I
can only pin the one. Sucks. Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. We just feel it out, see what happens. It's really cool. We're super excited. Yeah. I think that's probably going to be a wrap then, unless you guys have anything else to say?
I think I'm good.
Nice. Well, thanks.
I feel like there should be more to say. I would love to have a follow-up stream, especially when CW is available, so we can talk more about Wilson.
I think we absolutely should.
Like, we can't end now. I've really been enjoying the stream, actually.
Same.
Just talking.
Yeah, I've gotten really comfortable tonight, and this has just been nice to do it, like this. I think we could easily do this again. Yeah.
Somebody asks, will you ever release any unfinished content? I'm not sure if that means like cut content or other unfinished content.
We kind of have already released a lot of our unused content, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's like
if you look.
Did Operation Xmas get put into the?
Yeah, I think the VMFs are.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. To be honest,
I think the VMFs are too. Like all the VMFs for like pretty much everything we've worked on that was like tracked by the original like EZ2 stuff.
Yeah.
All that is like in VMFs, and you could like take a look at them. Most of them are not. A lot of the older stuff is not compiled into maps, but they can be. Like you go into VMFs, and if you know how to use Hammer, you could compile it.
I just seen a question from Eon. He's saying, "Do you plan on making the sequel lore accurate?" Of course. Like, it's going to be our own. It's going to be our own take, but of course we want to try and stay accurate. Definitely. We're just.
It's not like it's.
Yeah.
I think the real thing is just to be like not have anything like it's still taking place generally in like the Half-Life continuity, like, you know, I don't think it's like, it's more like just trying to avoid, like, you know, contradicting what we already know for sure from the games and experiencing them.
That's it.
Pretty much. Like, it's not like lore is like too broad of a stroke to really maintain a consistency with that. Entropy 02 has kind of broken already in many ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like how
kind
can,
of on one thing.
it's kind of like figuring out how we can do new things without going completely off the rails, but at the same time you kind of need
Right.
you need a little bit of wiggle room because you want to have it
Yeah.
fresh and exciting and interesting enough to be, you know, captivating. So yeah,
Like, I think maybe the question came from where you said that we're going in our own direction and we're not tied to the ideas of what episode 3 might have been anymore. And it's like it's totally our own story with the, you know, Bad Cop and Wilson are the main characters now. It's their story more so than Gordon's or Alex's or anyone else's. But it's still based on Half-Life, so it's still going to be, you know, in the Half-Life universe with lots of references to the games because we're, you know, big nerds. But it's like it focuses on their story and their relationship, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be chock full of Half-Life references because it's still a Half-Life mod and it's still supposed to be the same continuity.
and I think just looking at the drafts and the ideas that we've got, I think we're absolutely fine in that regard. I think we're right on track.
Totally.
I think it's great what we're doing. It's going to be like a whole new Half-Life game. It's going to be so cool. So exciting. Right. Well,
Person asks.
Oh, go on.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on. Go on.
I don't want to keep dragging it on. But somebody asked, "Are you going to stay true to Epistle 3?" Basically, they asked, and I think that's interesting because we drew a lot of inspiration from Epistle 3.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the thing with Epistle 3 is that it stands on its own. Like, I think a lot of fans take it the wrong way. I see a lot of people calling it like Half-Life 3 leaked script or something like that, which is completely wrong. That's not what it is. And you need to understand a little bit more about Mark and how he writes and what his involvement was with Half-Life to really understand. Like, that sounded a little bit pretentious the way I said that. I'm sorry. You need to have a very high IQ to understand Epistle 3. No, that's not what I mean. I just mean like it's a very personal thing that Mark wrote that is not a document from Valve.
No,
literally
right.
not from Valve's offices. It's something he wrote himself. And we do try to stay true to it. We drew a lot of inspiration from it because it kind of gave us like a viewpoint into like what were some of Mark's ideas that he might have used.
Yeah.
You know, and so we reference it a ton. Like we're probably gonna reference it some more.
I should probably mention, it's probably really important to mention that when I started writing Entropy 02, I wrote an email to Mark, and his reply kind of is the reason why the story went where it went, if you remember that email.
Yeah.
Didn't you like email him and his response like gave you the impression that he's kind of just like a little bit done with trying to answer questions?
A little bit. He was, but saying that
I'm done trying to figure out your past.
I mean, over the years I've pestered Mark lots, and he's always come back to me. Like, but the question that I asked him was, who got there first to the Borealis? I mean, was it the Combine or did the Resistance get there first? And he said to me, they never really figured it out. He suspected it would have been the Combine, but then he was just like, just make something up. So I was like, oh, okay then. So,
because Abyssal 3 also, like, Valve is going to take a different direction with the series, of course, because they're making more games now. But for us, it's like kind of a reference point. I'd like to say that we're actually pretty much 100% true to it in our own way, but like it's a reference document. It's not like it's not a blueprint.
That's it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's an interesting thing about the ending is that it's kind of like the choices you make in the ending kind of determine which, like, you know, different timelines based on different interpretations of episode 3. Like,
yes, that's right.
In the Combine ending, you have the Combine taking over Borealis, and it looks just like that concept art that came from Half-Life 3 or whatever. And in the ending where you resist the advisor, you let the Borealis go loose, which kind of seems like it sets the stage for Episode 3 when the Borealis is all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like two different like interpretations of Episode 3 that were both, you know,
that's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yep.
I think we're going to have to wrap this, guys, because it's getting late.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I could keep answering questions all day,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
been so
let's
much
just,
fun.
let's just end it off. We'll have another stream anyway.
We'll definitely have another stream. This was so much fun. I was super chill tonight. This is great. I really enjoyed this. So, yeah, we're going to have to do this again, I think.
And thank you to everyone who came and watched the stream and listened to us ramble. You know, I really appreciate you being here and your interest in the game.
Yeah, thanks ever so much.
And yeah, then don't forget about the retrospective survey that
do the survey.
we
That's
mentioned.
that's
Yeah,
pinned
it's pinned in the chat.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll
Definitely.
probably announce it in other places after the stream. But yeah, just wanted to put that out first, since it was also on our agenda to remind people of it.
Yeah. So, when we know, I should have just said, when we know what's happening with episode 1 or whatever, we'll let you know.
Yep.
Like, we're not going to sit on it. Whatever happens, you will find out. We'll tell you, just like we did before. So. Cool.
Yep.
Thanks ever so much, guys. I shall end the stream. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.